This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And give us a call, 208-991-4783. Be sure to become one of our friends on Facebook if you aren't already, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. As of this recording, we're pushing 980, but we'd like to be at 1,000 by Wednesday when we celebrate the second anniversary of our first regular episode. And also be sure to fill out our listener survey, survey.greatdetectives.net. This episode of the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio is brought to you by the faithful support of our listeners. Thank you so much for all your financial support. Well, we have a little shorter time in between episodes of Barrie Craig. This time there's only an 11-week gap. The last episode was from July 8th. This one is October 8th, 1952. It's called Murder by Threes. Sit back, listen, and enjoy.
William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
One sure way to reduce the body beautiful and eliminate excess fat is horizontal living. Lie prone and don't blow your lid. Your coffin lid, that is.
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. A smart confidential cop keeps a straitjacket handy as standard office equipment. The time has to come when you want to rush a prospective client to Bellevue for observation. What else can you do when a guy pops in, tells you his name is Julius Caesar, and then without any further explanation starts bawling like a baby? Julius Caesar, right out of Runyon. Pants under his hip line like a Burlicue comic. A checkered vest with egg stains. And a face that could only advertise a meat grinder. Here, my handkerchief. Dry your eyes. I only said to dry your eyes. You through blubbering?
Yeah.
What are you crying over?
Cleo,
Your dog?
my wife.
She ran off with a piano mover?
Would I be wearing this armband?
Oh, black armband. I'm sorry. You're a widower.
No.
You said she was your wife.
Is my wife.
She died and came back?
Cleo never died.
Then why the mourning band?
Cleo is gonna die for sure.
Some incurable disease?
You and me put together, Cleo is healthier.
Now I'm in utter confusion.
I was to a tea room.
Oh, I didn't know they had pool tables and tea rooms.
Look, I'm in there getting my fortune told. I'm gonna lose Cleo, it says in the tea leaves. Cleo has got to go.
What's going to kill her?
Not what. Who? That is what I want to know.
You, maybe?
Chop off my arm, I wouldn't hurt Cleo. I love this doll.
That's the whole basis of your fears? Cleo didn't make out in the tea leaves?
Let alone that, someone has tried to get to her already.
Clear up get to her for me.
Rub her out. Depart, Cleo, from my midst.
Somebody tried to murder Cleo?
What was I saying?
Don't you know?
Okay, murder.
Describe the attempt, Julius.
Cleo has got a medicine for pep. A hangover had her down. So she took a swallow of this stuff.
What was she drinking instead?
Poison. Somebody had switched the bottles on Cleo.
That's the attempt?
No, I got a few more. This one, for instance. Coming down the stairs. Soap. Now her spine is out of whack. Cleo leans a little.
To the right or left?
Left. No, right. No. Oh, I give up.
Who's behind all the mayhem?
I wouldn't be here if I knew. Here. 3 C's on account. I took a mortgage on a shop.
Shop?
Flowers. I run a flower shop over at Prince and Fort. For free, any time, I'll make you up a wreath.
Oh, no, thanks. Save it for Cleo.
The biggest in town. When Cleo goes, it'll need a Mack truck to haul it. Here, I'll show you a picture of Cleo. In a bathing suit.
Where's the bathing suit?
Bikini. That's a type suit. In the picture there, Cleo's in the contest.
Contest?
Yeah, Mrs. Apple Pie, 1952. This is a contest for married queens who can bake. A gent who manufactures the stuff, the pies, that is, Mr. Willoughby. He's sponsoring the contest. 20 grand.
20 grand?
That's the first prize.
How are Cleo's chances?
You've seen her picture.
But I haven't tasted her pie.
Smooth. It slides into your stomach. You don't even need no teeth. Cleo can't miss. Only, you see, that's what's going to get her knocked off.
The envious competition.
Yeah, them. Cleo's got to be stopped, somebody figures. Oh, please, don't leave me lose her.
Well, I'll do my best. Where is Cleo now?
Calamity House. That's a hotel this sponsor Willoughby rented out in Sheepshead Bay. The whole joint. Every contestant has got to stay there and take a turn in the kitchen.
Baking pie.
All week long. They judged them on the pies, and then they judged them on their looks.
Calamity House. Okay, Julius. You've whet my appetite. I'll go have myself a pie. As it so happened, I ran into Cleo before I got to Calamity House and Apple Pie Heaven on the highway, going up an incline where a sign warned Horseshoe Curve. Coincidence or destiny? I made a note to look up a mystic and ask him sometime. Anyhow, I hadn't made the top of the hill when a car flung around the upper level curve coming down toward me. A car out of control, it looked like. I braked to a dead stop. The runaway car whizzed past me. I got a photo look of a lady driver, and then came the crash. A car crash creates employment. Specialists pile in like grips at a sideshow. When the emergency squads got finished, I huddled with Lieutenant Trav Rogers. Trav had jumped at the chance to head out to Sheepshead Bay at the first radio flash. Trav liked the sea air.
Cleo Odell was her name.
Cleo Odell Caesar.
Caesar?
She was married to Julius Caesar.
Her age didn't show.
I'm not joking.
No, you're not? All right, instruct me.
Later. Meanwhile, let's get down to the whys and wherefores of the accident.
Negligent driving or inexperience coming down inclines or her brakes wouldn't work. Au revoir, Cleo Odell.
No good, Trav.
What's wrong with my reconstruction?
The cuts and gashes on the victim's face and neck.
You get badly marked up and cut racing downhill into a crash?
I examined the car.
So did I.
The safety glass cracked, but it didn't shred or splinter.
Yes, that's so. I made a note of that, even wondered a bit.
With no chips of glass flying about, how could she get cut up as she was? Another thing.
Yes, Craig?
If you checked over the corpse.
I left that to Dr. Conway.
I didn't. I satisfied myself. The bleeding from those cuts on her face and neck, they'd begun to dry.
You're certain of that?
I'm positive they couldn't be fresh wounds sustained from the crash itself. Those cuts and gashes came earlier, before the bottom of the hill.
You've mustered a pretty convincing story.
I've got a clincher. Come over to the wreck. Take a look at the gas accelerator.
All right. So?
Feel around it.
It's wedged to the floorboard.
What's wedging it?
What? Oh, wait. A pebble. This pebble was wedging the gas accelerator.
I discovered that 20 minutes ago.
But I had two men, Muller and Wilson.
They missed the pebble. They weren't looking for evidence of foul play.
No. Looked for all the world like a cut-and-dried vehicular accident. The car out of control, an unfortunate fatality.
It was murder. Cleo Odell was beaten to death, beaten around the head and neck by a blunt instrument. That's where she got those cuts and gashes.
The killer then sat her in the car, rigged the gas accelerator by wedging it with this pebble, switched on the ignition, sent the car down the incline.
Trying for the perfect murder. In Calamity House, pattering about the main suite like a Maharaja, I found the contest sponsor and pie manufacturer, Mr. Willoughby. His Highness was wearing a scarlet lounging robe with a golden dragon growling across it.
This tragedy, Mr. Craig, it casts a damper.
Murder does that, Willoughby.
Murder? But I thought...
The first police flash was a mistake. Cleo was beaten to death before she went joyriding down an incline.
I'm bewildered. I cannot grasp.
Let's stray from the corpse until your blood pressure can take it better. Answer me this. What were Cleo Odell's chances of pocketing your $20,000?
Why, most excellent indeed.
Her pies hit the spot?
They were outstanding. In the first 4 contest days, Cleo Odell had won 456 points. We have a point scoring system.
Skip the intricacies. Who was the runner-up? The missus closest to Cleo's 456. The contestant most likely to win, if not for Cleo.
Why, Lois LaRue. Her point score so far, I believe, is 372. Yes, 372.
And the rest of the field?
Oh, below 200. Their chances of forging ahead to victory are quite doubtful.
Okay, then. Lois LaRue. Cleo alive could cost Lois $20,000.
Well, surely you don't think...
I'm only asking. Now, about looks, shapes, how much rides with that?
Physical beauty determines the winner only in the event that there is a close race between 2 or 3 contestants. If the spread in points between contestant 1 and 2 or 1 and 2 and 3 is less than 50...
Less than 50? Well, that ends that. Cleo was a mile ahead of everybody. Her runner-up and survivor, this Lois LaRue, is also miles ahead of the field.
Yes. After Cleo Odell, it appears the award must go to Lois LaRue.
Who awards points? Or maybe let me say it this way. Who judges the quality of the pies and hands out the points?
Our judge, Mr. Cornell, Vincent Cornell. Mr. Cornell is a well-known illustrator.
Who appointed him judge?
I did. If you're minded to impugn...
Simmer down, Your Highness. I'm just acquainting myself with background. All right for me to go have myself a pie?
Why, of course. Any number of them. The kitchen is on the basement level. Every pie is enriched with exclusive Willoughby ingredients. A secret miracle chemical, exclusive with Willoughby.
Cut, you've got your plug in. You're keeping me from the pies. I loaded up on pies, and then I let Lois LaRue feed me vital statistics about herself. A brunette with hair of midnight black, and a cute nose that tilted at the tip like a ski jump. Her bathing suit made me feel overdressed. Lois looked like she'd been tipped off to my coming. She had soft lights and softer music going.
A drink, Mr. Craig?
No, thanks. And, let's switch off the music, huh? Romance and murder mix badly.
Oh, it was a terrible thing. Cleo had so much to live for.
There was a neat $20,000 in her future.
But you can't say that with certainty. The contest hasn't finished.
It was in the bag for Cleo. She was a mile ahead on points. Ahead of you.
There are 9 contestants here in Calamity House.
The other 7 are hanging on for the exercise.
All right, I won't argue it. Except to say that I felt I could win somehow.
And somehow you're going to. That's for sure.
I don't know how to take that.
Resent it if you can muster outraged innocence.
If I can... Why, of all the gold...
No throwing things. And don't throw music and curves at me, beautiful. I look at that utter torso of yours, and all I can see is a corpse. The corpse of Cleo Odell. Now, let's get businesslike.
Well, what do you expect of me?
Some insight into you. You're right up front in my gallery of suspects.
Merely because I was closest to winning after Cleo?
Because 20 grand is bait, and you look to me like hunger. Like you'd die if you lost the contest.
All right. I admit it. I am intense about winning. I don't dare lose. This contest isn't my gamble alone. They're investors. It's their gamble, too.
Investors, meaning?
Backers. My family and friends. They've shelled out every penny they could raise to dress me, pay for my photographs, publicity, miscellaneous expenses. I'm a corporate body. I've been cut into percentages, into pieces.
Familiar stuff, speaking of contests. How does your husband fit into the situation?
My husband?
This is a contest for married women only.
Oh, yes, my husband, Zach.
Zach?
Zach Foster. He manages me, too, represents me.
Where is he?
Why, around. Zach floats around.
What is he, a balloon?
Oh, well, I mean, Zach can't be pinned down to a place, so to speak. He's on the move, making arrangements, contacts. Sometimes he's here at the hotel, other times somewhere else.
I see. Next time you see Zach, tell him to stay put long enough to exchange introductions with me. Tell him Barrie Craig wants to talk to him. The absent husband, Zach, presented himself a little unexpectedly. I was down in the kitchen again, sinking my overjoyed molars into more pies.
You Barrie Craig?
Wait till I check my driver's license.
Put your hands up.
Must I?
And don't put your hands up. See if I care. Should teach you.
Oh, my jaw. Teach me what?
To terrorize my wife.
I talk better standing. I terrorized your wife, you say?
Lois LaRue. I found her in hysterics, a poor kid. Crying her eyes out. You just left, she said.
I talked to her, sure.
You worked over her. Like she was on trial.
She must feel awfully guilty to have reacted like that.
Watch that tongue, Craig. You can't throw murder accusations around and get away with it.
Not with Zach Foster around, huh?
Lois is sensitive.
Like a cigar store Indian.
She goes off her feed. She can't bake. She thins down because she can't eat or sleep. She loses her figure.
She consequently loses the contest.
Yeah. Is that your game? To take the steam out of Lois? You working on the slide for some other contestant?
Uh-huh.
You admit it.
I'm working in the open for some other contestant. For Cleo Odell.
Wise guy.
Cleo Odell. Want to confess to murdering her, maybe?
Craig, I'm going to declare total war.
You already declared it, chum. You fired the first shot. It's my turn now for a counteroffensive. I was up before the count of 10, chum. Let's see if you beat my time. One thing about a contest judge, he doesn't ever look the part. He looks nervous, like he's only doing the job because somebody's got a gun at his head. The illustrator, Vincent Cornell, gave the standard impression.
Oh, how I ever got into this thing.
How did you?
Mr. Willoughby requested me to judge the contest as a personal favor to him.
Why should that move you?
Well, Mr. Willoughby is an important advertiser in magazines I do illustrating for. It was necessary goodwill that I...
And you did. Now to the contest. Question. Has there been any undue pressure on you?
Undue pressure?
To influence you, get you to vote points, favor some one contestant.
Oh, what makes you think to ask that?
Since I don't see you blow an immediate fuse, it looks like my question is very much in order.
I have no answer for you.
Don't make me coax too hard. We're not just passing the time, Cornell.
Yes, I know the seriousness, the enormity, Miss Odell.
The recent Miss Odell.
I can't afford to get involved and get mixed up. A scandal could be troublesome to me professionally. Pursue your investigation in some other manner. Interrogate the others, and good luck to you. I simply will not be involved, and I'll say nothing. In fact, I'm resigning as judge at once.
Come off it, Cornell. You can resign all over the lot, but you're still going to find things troublesome.
What do you mean?
Late hours in a certain room in police headquarters. There'll be 20 guys packed around, with you the center of attraction. How do you sleep sitting up in a straight chair?
Mr. Craig, I'm confused.
Tell what you know and watch the confusion evaporate. Undue influence. What about it?
Well, I found myself pressed to favor Cleo Odell.
Cleo Odell?
You seem surprised.
Yeah. I thought any pressure on you would be on behalf of the runner-up, Lois LaRue. That nice husband of hers, so-called Zach Foster.
No, there were no overtures made to me, no pressure or prompting for Lois LaRue, only for the late Cleo Odell. I, in fact, questioned some 200 points I awarded her. In thinking it over later, I felt I was, influenced.
Who pressured you?
Mind you, it wasn't overt. It was something subtle, more insidious. Say, a notion cleverly planted in my thinking, a bias.
Never mind how it was done. Who pressured you?
I'm... Ow!
Cornell!
I've been shot.
Yeah. Someone outside your window aiming a rifle. How bad is it?
It hurts. Go seize...
Can't. I've got to lie here, flat beside you, and keep my fingers crossed. There's a second shot coming. That was for me. Insurance in case I'd gotten the whole story out of you. Name who pressured you for Cleo. Cornell. Cornell. Not much point questioning a corpse. Murder to shut Cornell up. A rifleman with a nice sense of timing. The search outside the window turned up nothing, except an overturned flower pot. No footprints. You don't find any on flagstone. The search of the grounds reintroduced me to my client, Julius. Julius was sitting on the edge of a goldfish pond, crying into it. I loaned you my one good handkerchief this morning.
I got it here in my pocket.
Be my guest. Blow your nose. You really got something to blubber about now. No kidding this time.
I won't never stop crying.
Do it someplace else. You've got the fish pond overflowing.
I lost Cleo.
Cleo lost more. What brings you here to Calamity House?
To see you. I got things to talk over.
Where did you park your BB gun?
I don't get you.
How long have you been squatting down here?
10 minutes.
Then you heard 2 rifle shots.
No.
Like peals of thunder and with breaking glass. What are you, stone deaf?
No.
No what?
Not stone deaf, but I don't hear good. I once got a draft deferment because I don't hear good.
Oh, Julius, you kill me.
Wouldn't I like to?
Repeat that, please.
For losing me Cleo. Craig, they're going to pin it on me. Lay Cleo's murder to me.
On what ground?
15 grand. Double indemnity. That makes 30.
$30,000? You carried insurance on Cleo?
Yeah, double if Cleo went in an accident, like a train or a car.
A policy that size is suspicious. All of a sudden, I even suspect you myself, Julius.
Oh, don't say that.
Are there any other suspicious circumstances wrapped around that policy?
Yeah, there are. You see, I got the policy only 2 weeks before.
2 weeks before Cleo went down the incline?
Yeah.
2 weeks before this afternoon?
Yeah, that's what.
Cleo was murdered, and the killer tried awfully hard to make it look like an accident. A vehicular accident.
Looks bad for me, huh?
I can practically see you in the electric chair.
Oh, Craig, don't say that.
Get him like Julius and get your funny bone tickled. While the client maybe fits you for a pair of horns. A comic character, friend Julius, weak in the head. But what was so dumb about 15 grand? Double indemnity equals 30. To me, it qualified Julius as a genius, and maybe even a murderer. When a confidential cop's stuck for an answer, he reaches into his bag for a trick, like I did. My trick was to conceal evidence of murder. The illustrator and recent contest judge, Cornell. I decided to let him spend the first hour or so of the hereafter in a clothes closet. A corpse in a closet and a locked room. In case people wandered about a little too freely in Calamity House. I made myself conspicuously available in Calamity House, the main lobby. I couldn't be missed by anybody. Even a blind man could reach me by the odor of my cigar. The first gent to buttonhole me was Zach Foster, looking as if it was quite an effort to come up and talk to me.
Craig?
Zach.
Okay to talk to you?
Is it round two?
No. War's over as far as I'm concerned. Anyhow,
Peace. It's wonderful.
Frankly, I'm frightened stiff.
Of what?
Well, you mainly. The way you go about things. And the slant you're working on. How Cleo Odell died, who killed her, and why.
Did you?
No. But it might fit. You might make it fit. That's why I'm scared. For me and a kid.
Who's the kid?
Lois. You see...
You're about to make a confession.
Yeah. A confession is something I think you've already guessed.
That you're not married to Lois.
And you did guess. No. We're in a contest on false pretenses. We don't qualify. Lois is single. I promoted her into the lie. I got her to go along with the swindle, make out she was a Mrs. Zach Foster.
You've just talked yourself out of 20 grand.
Yeah, I know. I'm scared off. I don't want a rap we don't rate. The murder of Cleo Odell can't be laid to us.
Now what, Zach?
I'm going to locate the contest judge, Cornell, and make a clean breast. Tell him what I just told you. Why Lois LaRue should be disqualified. Then I'm going to clear out. I mean, if it's okay with you.
It's okay with me. You've just cleared yourself, all right, in a bigger way than you suspect. But stick around a while anyhow. I stuck it out in the main lobby of Calamity House, behind a cigar, conspicuously available to all comers. The next arrival to claim my ear was the Maharaja himself, the contest sponsor, Willoughby. No purple dressing gown this time. The only thing purple on him was his face.
Craig.
Your Highness?
I've been embarrassed and distressed. The Willoughby name has become infamous. The contest has been scandalized. I've become notorious.
Relax, Willoughby.
Relax, you say? With this succession of outrages? I disavow the contest. I'll scuttle it.
Simmer down. You're raising your blood pressure.
This apathy in you, this idiotic calm, with two murders crying out for justice? Mr. Craig, I find you offensive.
And I find you guilty.
What's that?
Guilty.
What nonsense is this?
You just convicted yourself. 2 murders, you said. Cleo Odell is 1. Who's number 2?
Why, Vincent Cornell.
Correct. But only the murderer could know that.
Only a murderer?
There's been no advertising of Cornell's fate. I've got him in a clothes closet. His death is a secret 2 people share, me and the killer. That's you. You can clam up or you can talk. Whatever your motive was, it can wait. I can wait. But you're licked. 2 murders. You did them both.
Yes. I did them both. Cleo Odell, because she knew me when we met, she recognized me. An ugly and untalented person. I was forced to see that she won our contest. And after victory, I knew there'd be other blackmail, other tribute to pay. If I didn't dispose of her first.
What did Cleo have on you?
An unsolved murder. In the long ago past. 17 years ago. My wife, I'd struck her fatally in the heat of a quarrel. I'd fled, left town, and later resumed my life elsewhere. Here in New York with a new name. Cleo Odell was a Janet Tyler, in her teens then. the daughter of a next-door neighbor in our town.
Ironic twist. Cleo showing up in your contest 17 years later. You're escaping the police in all that time, but running afoul of Cleo.
My retribution. I'd have to pay for my crime sometime, I knew. I always knew.
Cornell. Why did he have to die?
Cornell could tell you that I had influenced him to favor Cleo. You see, I'd agreed to blackmail before.
Before you decided that the only good blackmailer was a dead blackmailer.
Yes. I wasn't at first aware of the lady's avarice. That I would be her captive forever.
Case solved. You're under arrest for murder. Murder new and old. Now, who was it who said, your sins will find you out?
You have been listening to William Gargan in another exciting transcribed mystery drama from the adventures of Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Tonight's story, Murder by Threes, was written by John Robert. Next week, it's the strange story titled Dead Loss, about which Barrie Craig has this to say.
Next week, a man comes to visit me 6 months after he's buried. A lady dies long after she's dead. And a beautiful young girl does what? Good night, folks. See you next week.
Featured in the role of Lois was Barbara Weeks. Barrie Craig, starring William Gargan, was under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is Don Pardo speaking.
This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. Well, this was one of the weaker endings so far. I've never quite been a fan of that whole mystery-solving technique in which the detective only catches the villain through a slip of the tongue that would never hold up in court. Plus, after Craig solved the case, the murderer just kind of folded. But the journey was kind of fun. They had some pretty interesting characters, and of course, Julius Caesar was not the least of those. Now we turn to listener comments and feedback. I want to thank Brian for a nice donation to the show, and as we do with all donations of $7 or more, I've sent along access to our premium site, which has all the extras for both the great detectives of Old Time Radio and the Old Time Dragnet show. And we have a comment on Podcast Alley. This is a great podcast. Thanks for your selections and comments, Adam, from Brian. Well, thanks so much for your comments and support, Brian. We will be back tomorrow with Rogue's Gallery with a new Richard Rogue. And next week, another episode of Barrie Craig Confidential Investigator. Oh, before I go, I should let you know the episodes that we are lost. After a Long Way Home, we had No Memory for Murder, Murder in Paradise, The Double Cross, Heatwave, Happy Alibi, Murder Off Stage, Blood on the Flowers, Perfect Suspect, Not Alarm, and Millionaire's Widow. The good news is that next week's episode will be the one that was advertised at the end of Barrie Craig, as the next episode is in circulation, so we'll see you back then with that. Well, this show is brought to you by the faithful support of our great listeners. Thank you so much for your great financial support. Well, as we've mentioned before, Dick Powell left Rogue's Gallery after the summer 1946 series. Well, Fitch's Shampoo, the sponsor, decided to bring Rogue's Gallery back without Dick Powell in the summer of 1947, and they chose a film star, Barry Sullivan. Sullivan was a very solid working actor who would enjoy some success, particularly later on in television. when he would play Ken Thurston in the Man Called X TV series, and would also star in The Harbor Master and The Tall Man. Over radio, he did fill in for 2 weeks for Vincent Price when Price was not available to play the role of the Saint. And so he took on an 18-week summer series of Rogues Gallery in 1947. This is the 4th episode of the 18. It's called Phyllis, Adrian is Missing, from June 29th of 1947.
Laugh a while, let a song be your style, use Fitch shampoo. Don't despair, use your head, save your hair, use Fitch shampoo. The F.W. Fitch Company presents Barrie Sullivan as Private Detective Richard Rogue in Rogues Gallery.
Rogue speaking. You know, in my business, it's hard to get ahead. There's so many other people trying to get ahead. My head, that is. Sometimes I think it might be better to let them scrape my name off the door before they chisel it into a headstone. Because I'm just a guy who doesn't like to see people get pushed around. Myself in particular. And I often wonder if there's any real future for me in the sneak, snoop, and snitch racket when so many people don't want me to have one. That was the frame of mind I was in one Saturday afternoon when Howard Adrian, a well-known mouthpiece, called to tell me his troubles. Hello.
Rogie, this is Howard Adrian.
Hey, how are you? Say, you're just in time. I'm thinking of selling out. Got a wonderful set of law books here. Let you have them cheap. Never even cut the pages. Never had time.
Listen, Rogie, my wife is missing.
Well, she's not here. I just took inventory.
You don't understand. She's gone, vanished. I'm worried, Rogie.
How long's she been gone, Howard?
2 weeks.
What have you done to locate her?
Nothing at all, until now. This has got to be between you and me, Rogie. You see, it's rather delicate. Phyllis is pretty headstrong, and I've got to move cautiously.
Okay, Howard, I think I understand. You sit tight, I'll be right over. And relax. Richard Rogue will bring her back alive. Yeah, that's what I said. But the way it turned out, I didn't. I paid a call on Howard Adrian. His outer office was empty, and when I entered his private office without knocking, I found him kissing his secretary. It made a pretty picture, suitable for framing. Well, now I get it. You buried your wife in the cellar like Edgar Allan Poe so you could marry your beautiful secretary. You only hired me for a blind like in a detective story.
Cut it out, Rogie. Your attempted humor isn't funny.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Sorry, no time for me to go popping off.
All right. This is Miss Corbin. Miss Crystal Corbin, Richard Rogue.
I'm charmed.
Likewise. Now, Howard, how about your wife?
Just a minute. That'll be all, Miss Corbin.
No, wait. Maybe she can help.
Well, I don't see
I suppose we may as well tell Mr. Rogue. You see, Crystal and I...
That's enough. It's an old story.
I hope we're not boring you.
Not at all. Well, here's some good news. I may have a line on her already. The elevator operator tells me he took her down from here on the day she disappeared. She was with a tall man with brown muscles.
Oh, yes, that would be Nicky Barron.
Nicky Barron? I know him. He used to be mixed up with Rocky Malatesta when they were running the gambling ships off the coast. Stood trial for the murder of Pig Muldoon in Frisco, gang war. Say, Howard, didn't you handle Barron's defense at that trial?
That's right.
Well, he must have been clean or you wouldn't have touched him.
Thanks, and you're right. That's how I built my reputation, and the reputation helped. Nicky was acquitted, and he stayed clean ever since.
Doing what?
Doing all right, apparently. Operates a small club in the valley, the Mandalay. Dropped in to see me the other day. Looked sharp.
And walked out with your wife, eh?
This is ridiculous. There was nothing between Mrs. Adrian
Whose
and...
side are you on, Miss Corbin?
She's only trying to help.
Sure. Howard, you know, your working conditions are so pleasant, I can't see why you want me to find your wife. Why not leave well enough alone?
Because Howard wants her back so he can make a clean break. Get things settled once and for all.
That's right. You find her so I could lose her, legally.
She'll give you a divorce?
She wants one herself.
Oh, why?
She doesn't like me.
Oh, she doesn't like you?
No.
Does she love you?
Cigarette?
Thanks.
Light.
Thanks.
Rogie, don't worry about it. Just find Phyllis and forget the rest.
Sure, Howard, I'll remember that. But if I don't forget it, you remind me, huh? Phyllis Adrian seemed to have vanished like Judge Crater. She seemed to have rolled her footsteps up behind her, and even her shadow must have been following the wrong blonde. My first move in locating her was refreshingly simple. I merely called another private detective and assigned him to check every hotel in town at half my daily fee. Yeah, I should have been an agent. Then I headed for the Mandalay. The Mandalay was lined with woven grass mats and paneled with bamboo. You could have held hands across the dance floor. And in the middle of it, a girl was trying to shake herself out of a coat of grease paint and a sarong. I got past her all right without being hit by a flying hip and made the door of Nicky Barron's office. It was easy money. Phyllis Adrian was there. Well, hello, Mrs. Adrian.
Goodbye, Mr. Rogue.
Why, Nicky, that's not a very warm welcome.
I'll make it warmer if you get funny, Snooper.
My friends say I'm naturally funny. Maybe we'd make a team. I think you're a wonderful stew.
I warned you, Gumshoe.
Nicky, don't tell him.
Yeah? Wouldn't that be a shame? Okay, Rogue, stand up and take it.
Oh, relax, will you? You start off like that, what you going to do for an encore?
Why don't you snoops leave me alone? I'm in the clear with this joint.
Very interesting. Fall back and regroup, Nicky. I'm not interested in you.
Well, then put that sock on your account in case you get that way. Come on, get off the floor. It's a new carpet.
It's Mrs. Adrian I care about.
Oh, really?
Sure enough, baby. Can't think of anybody I care more about at the moment.
Why, Nicky, the man is utterly plain.
Yeah, the life of the party. That's him.
Will you see me when I try on the lampshades? Mrs. Adrian, shall we rumble?
I'd be utterly delighted.
Oh, just one little thing first. Nicky, would you step over here a minute? No, a little more this way, please. That's good. Oh. Yes, sir. A comedy team. Slapstick. Did you get that wonderful fall?
Why, Mr. Rose, you have muscles.
Nah, I just blow myself up with a bicycle pump. Shall we go?
And that's the first act of tonight's graphic adventure from Rogues Gallery. The F.W. Fitch Company is presenting Barrie Sullivan as star of this Sunday series, bringing you the adventures of Private Detective Richard Rogue. In just a moment, we'll continue with our story. America's number one hair problem is dandruff. Yes, according to a current survey made by Cosmopolitan magazine, 61.5% of those interviewed said their number one hair problem is dandruff. You can lick this problem by using Fitch's Dandruff Remover Shampoo regularly. Fitch is the only shampoo made whose guarantee to remove dandruff with the first application is backed by one of the world's largest insurance firms. Keep your hair dandruff-free with Fitch shampoo. And men, for hair with that just-combed look, use Fitch's new Quin Oil hair tonic. Quin Oil gives your hair its rightful, healthy-looking luster, even if it's been dried out by hot summer sun and wind. Not sticky or greasy, Quin Oil is blended from 5 essential oils for perfect hair grooming. Get Fitch's Quin Oil hair tonic at toilet goods counters. Quin Oil is spelled Quinoil. Later in tonight's program, a special offer for the United States only will be made. Everyone in the family will want to listen for details.
When I walked in on a tender love scene between Howard Adrian and his secretary, I couldn't see why he was so anxious for me to locate his missing wife. But I did locate her, and I was ready to take her home. Though I had to overcome the objections of one Nicky Barron, proprietor of the Mandalay. I guess Nicky was convinced, though, because as he lay there on the carpet, he didn't seem to have another word to say. Well, for a moment, Phyllis Adrian seemed undecided between the horizontal Mr. Barron and the perpendicular Mr. Rogue. Then she began to smile.
I must admit that's an utterly divine Sunday Waldorf you've had.
Just part of life at its best.
Yes. It's given me an idea. Be a nice boy, will you, and wait for me in the lobby?
Well, I don't like to wear out my welcome.
Oh, it'll only be a minute. When this wilted snapdragon revives, I'll have something to say to him that isn't for yours, shall I, dear? Dear darling.
So I was a darling. What else could I do? In that silk dress, Phyllis Adrian's geography was making history. I waited in the lobby, and I was just telling the hat check girl to look out for men who tell hat check girls to look out for men when someone tugged at my sleeve. I turned around. At first, I didn't recognize her without her lipstick smeared. It was Crystal Corbin. Well, well, Miss Corbin. You're looking a little like a Dresden doll tonight.
Thanks. Same to you. Look, Mr. Rogue, you've done your job. You found Mrs. Adrian. That's all Howard's paying you to do. Why not be smart and stop playing with dynamite? Leave Nicky Barron alone.
Crystal, kid, you surprised me. What makes you think I'm interested in Nicky Barron?
Because I know you had Betty Callahan checking the newspaper files this afternoon on the death of Pig Muldoon. And Nicky won't like that.
My. It's a crime to waste those gams doing Nicky's legwork. What's your interest, Crystal?
Well, you interest me. Enough so I wouldn't like to see that smile without any teeth in it.
Why, Chris, I didn't know you cared.
Mr. Rogue, forget Nicky Barron and get Mrs. Adrian back to her husband. Maybe I will, too.
That's just what I'm trying to do, darling. If people will stop shoving Nicky Barron down my throat.
Uh-oh. Here comes Phyllis. Forget your son.
Good boy. Right where I left him.
Ready to go back to Papa?
Oh, don't be so eager to get rid of me. I still have one more stop to make to bring about everything I've been trying to do these 2 weeks. You're important in my plans.
Look, where do I fit in? We've only just met.
Well, it's complicated, but you fit in. I'll tell you this much. I'm up to my mascara in a tricky business deal, and you're the lever I need to swing it.
Uh-huh.
Play along a few more hands without looking at my cards, and I'll cut you in on the pot.
I've already got a deal from your husband, remember?
Oh, I'll see you collect on that, too. And I'll double it.
Say no more, I'm in. Now, whose grave do I have to rob?
Well, you're not so far wrong as that, Richard. We're selling a corpse. But all you have to do is stand in the background and rattle its bones.
We got where we were going at 10:25. It was a house on the ocean front, near Malibu. Whose place is this?
Ask me no questions, Richard. What are you waiting for? An engraved invitation?
Nope, just looking for the light switch. Here it is. The place was a man's idea of what a woman would think a man's place ought to look like. Lots of copper, knotty pine, big brick fireplace, white bearskin rugs, you know, the works. One end of the room was sliding glass windows from top to bottom, looking out on a private beach and plenty of Pacific. I'd no sooner taste the layout than Phyllis Adrian snapped off the lights. Hey, cut it out. I'm scared of the dark.
Oh, now, Mr. Muscle, don't tell me you're frightened of poor little me.
Could be, baby, could be. But I just don't like the idea of making mud pies in somebody else's sandbox.
Relax. Come here and sit down. Don't you love the moonlight, Richard?
It's overrated. It shines on the same things the sun does, baby.
But on them it looks good.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there's none of us so perfect we couldn't stand a softer focus.
In more ways than one. More ways than one.
Let's just stick to one.
All right.
What's up? Whose place is this? She smiled but didn't answer. And it was right then I began to feel that knot in my chest. The uncanny vibrations of something about to happen. And from then until it did happen, my heart was on a pogo stick and my nerves were skipping rope. Phyllis went to the record cabinet and fumbled through a row of platters until she found the one she wanted. A pale, ethereal strains of a violin filled the room, thin and ghostly. Mrs. Adrian listened like someone in a dream. She floated to the chair opposite me and settled herself in it like a cloud coming to rest on a hill.
Recognize the artist?
Who is it, Evelyn and her magic violin?
No, darling. It's Igorski. This is his house. And this composition he wrote only for me.
Pretty.
Romantic.
Sure. Come on over here and sit on the sofa.
No, thank you. I always sit here when he plays. He stands right there. And I sit here. Always.
You always close your eyes?
Yes. Right. Really.
Well, anything for a thrill. Well, music appreciation's a wonderful thing. But gunshot crescendos are too modern for my taste. I opened my eyes and leapt to my feet, and that knot in my chest pulled tight as a hangman's noose. Phyllis Adrian still sat where she was sitting. There was still a smile on her face. She still looked good. Yeah, good and dead. There was a gushing red hole in her throat. The clock said 11:05. I don't know why. The first thing I did was knock the playing arm off that record. I guess it made me nervous. Then I took a quick study around the house. There was no one in the kitchen, the closets, or under the bed. The shot seemed to have come from close by, maybe from the private beach beyond the big window, so I dived through them. There was nothing out there but sand, pounding surf, and fog. Fog thick as taffy was rolling in off the sea, coming in fast like they do at Malibu, blotting out everything. Everything but one shape at the shoreline that didn't look like driftwood. I yanked out my heater and dropped to the sand. Hey, you! Stop swimming or digging. I'm coming after you.
Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
I'll give you the first one. Don't be silly. I'm not that polite.
I ain't got no gun!
That proves I have got one. So you'd better start spitting bullets, kids, and make that first one count. I started inching toward him, my finger trembling on the trigger, ready for a duel in the fog, but he foxed me. He stood up and started waving his arms over his head.
Don't shoot! Don't shoot! I'll give up!
Okay, buddy, just hold it like that. Now, start talking. Who are you?
Bert Heck.
Bert Heck. Hey, the private snoop?
Yeah, how'd you know?
No, why, I'm the guy who hired you to find Mrs. Adrian.
You're Richard Rhodes.
Yeah, you're working for me.
Well, I found her.
Yeah, but I said find her, not get her dead or alive.
Now, wait a minute. You ain't telling me I did it.
Who else?
You won't get sure?
No, I won't get sure.
You did.
I did?
Sure, I seen you. I was watching through the big windows. You were sitting on the couch with your back to me. She was sitting in the chair facing me. You was listening to the music, and all of a sudden you let her have it. What's the matter? Don't you like music?
Not the kind you're making. I want to know how you happened to be outside that window. I told you to check hotels for Mrs. Adrian. Tonight I find you peeping through windows that belong to a friend of hers. You get around. You're terrific. Tell me your secret.
Oh, well, I found a dame registered at the Wilshire Park Terrace as Adrian Howard. Howard, Adrian Howard. You get it?
Wonderful. How'd you ever figure it out?
Listen, if you can't praise the other guy's work, don't knock it.
Okay, keep talking.
Well, I checked the telephone calls, and they was all to this beach address. She wasn't in, so I come out looking for her. I looked through the window, and I seen it happen.
You saw me kill her, huh?
Well, it was kind of dark. Maybe it was two other fellas. And since it's you holding the gun, Rogue, yeah, I guess I must have made a mistake.
If you thought I did it, why didn't you go for a cop instead of hiding out here on the beach?
Oh, at your age, Rogue. I didn't want no cops in on the deal. I was going to tell you, when you left, you've been in this racket long enough to know that there's more moolah in not telling who done it. You know what I mean?
You put the hooks in me for a hush, eh?
Well, we all make mistakes, Rogue.
Sure, but you're overdoing it. Okay, Bert, let's go inside the house. I'm calling homicide.
You'll be sorry.
Somebody's going to be sorry. All right, Rogue, drop that heater and reach. You were right, Bert. I'm sorry. Okay, Baron, this makes you dealer.
Smart boy, Rose. Now hand over those papers.
Papers? Oh, I might have known there'd be papers. Well, I hate to say this because I know what'll happen, but... What papers? Oh, that's it. It happened.
Papers you wanted bad enough to bump Mrs. Adrian for.
Oh, now you're telling me I didn't.
Who else?
I thought you did.
Now, wait a minute. I just walked into this. I found her that way. Don't try to hang it on me.
Oh, don't mind him. He tries to hang it on anybody who comes along.
Who's this creep?
A business associate. You can talk in front of him.
Okay. For your benefit, creep, this dame tried to shake me down tonight. I was supposed to meet her at 12 o'clock with 10 grand in hush money. When I walked in, she was... like that.
Go ahead. Tell him where I come in.
Oh, sure. I was having trouble raising the dough, so she tells me tonight she's taking Rogue into the deal with her. Says a smart shamus like him would know how to peddle that kind of dope. But Rogue here couldn't wait for the split. So he cut her out with a slug.
That wraps it up, a motive. Oh, but one thing. What was they selling?
I don't mind telling you now. I got nothing to lose. Besides, you two have a murder rap of your own to settle between you. Okay. I got a little careless once up in Frisco. I was tossing lead around for a bluff, and a gent named Pig Muldoon stepped into one and called me. Oh, I was very sorry, but it couldn't have happened to a worse rat.
Yeah, sure, I remember, but I thought you was cleared.
Yeah, I was. There was just one little technicality. I was guilty.
Howard Adrian didn't know that when he took the case?
No, not when he took the case, he didn't. But before the trial was over, he did. See, the jury was already out when a guy called Meathead Maxwell paid him a call. He was the boy who was with me at the time. He wasn't trying to finger me. He just wanted a little powder money to blow town before anyone caught up with him and started asking questions.
You mean Adrian made a deal? Withheld state's evidence?
Yeah. He probably wouldn't have, but the jury was already out and he'd built up such a beautiful case. But he still didn't like it. Well, he got me off all right, but he also got a statement from the meathead. And he's been holding it over my head, making me walk the chalk.
That was what was in the papers, huh?
You catch on quick, kid.
Yeah.
But I was doing all right, you see, until Mrs. Adrian gets her mitts on the safety deposit key. All in the line of her wifely duties going through his pockets one night. Next day, she opens the box and pulls out my pass and starts in selling it back to me.
I can't see her doing it. She's doing all right, ain't she? Just being Mrs. Adrian.
Yeah, but she's not being just Mrs. Adrian. She's being a patron of the arts on the side, sponsoring concerts here and there. And I'm the angel. Either I angel her boyfriend, Igorski, or she spades up Muldoon.
Nice sitter.
Yeah, I thought you'd like it. All right, now, Rose, how about it, huh? No hard feelings. If you're still selling, I'm still buying. As for killing that dame, all I got for you is congratulations.
Okay. You put it that way? Did you bring the money with you?
Sure. I got it right here.
Let's see it.
Yeah, it is, right here.
You see, Bert, he's not so tough. That's the second time tonight he's dropped his guard.
You, Bill, neither are you. You made the very same mistake. Folding money. Legal letters, tons of it. So long, Kitty. Rest easy now. You look real cute there. Cheek to cheek.
Folks, here it is, a bullet ballpoint pen, specially for you from the Fitch Company. Yes, it's made from a genuine U.S. .30 caliber machine gun cartridge. It's sleek, streamlined, all metal, and chrome-plated. Filled with non-smear ink, it writes for months. It's neat, compact, only 4 inches long, just right to slip into purse or pocket. Dad will want one for notes. Mother will want one for her purse. And kids, you'll be the envy of the neighborhood if you have one. And here's all you do to get your bullet ballpoint pen. Send your name and address with 25 cents and the box top from any one of these 3 Fitch products. Fitch's Dandruff Remover Shampoo, Twin Oil Hair Tonic, or Skin Pep After-Shaving Lotion. Mail to Fitch, Des Moines, 6, Iowa. That's Fitch, Des Moines, 6, Iowa. Fitch is spelled F-I-T-C-H. And now back to Barrie Sullivan as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogue's Gallery.
I woke up with a lump the size of a hat on my head. Both my playmates were gone. Heck with the 10 grand and Barron probably after him with a grudge. And me with nothing but a corpse, I'd have a swell time explaining. I dragged myself to the phone and called Betty Callahan, a newspaper gal who sometimes knows the answers. I told her what happened and asked her to check the alibis of 3 other people, Crystal Corbin, Howard Adrian, and the violinist, Ivan Igorski. Then I spent the next 20 minutes trying to figure out one for myself. I still didn't have one when the telephone rang. It was Betty. At the time of the murder, Howard Adrian had been making a speech in front of 70 lawyers in a downtown hotel. Ivan Igorski was in San Diego giving a concert. He only had 2,000 witnesses. The way the alibis were stacking up, I figured Crystal Corbin would have been taking a bath in the Hollywood Bowl. But no, she'd been with Howard. Betty said she'd notified him and he was on his way out. So I had to have some answers ready fast. And then I saw it. The answer was in front of me all the time. Phyllis Adrian. The bullet had entered her throat at an up angle from somewhere near the floor. From that, I traced the possible trajectory of the slug to its point of origin and found myself looking at a wall gas heater with an aluminum grill work. I went over to it, knelt down, twisted some knobs, and removed the grill. There, wired to the pipes inside, was a .22 target pistol. A little further back, clamped to another pipe, was a silver tuning fork. 2 fine copper wires ran from the tips of the fork to the trigger of the gun. The trip hammer of the gun had been worked on with a file to make it respond to a hair-trigger touch. I didn't have to test it to know that the tuning fork would vibrate to the crescendo in Igorski's concerto, the Concerto of Death.
Rogue, we got here as fast as we could. What happened?
Oh, Holmes.
Phyllis, how horrible.
Oh, don't look up.
Oh, it's better you don't. I think she'd want a softer focus.
But I don't understand. How could it happen with you right here?
There's your killer, Howard. Death by remote control. Commits murder on cue to a musical note.
Good Lord, what a devilish thing. But who?
Why didn't you tell me your wife was in love with another man?
What? But how could I? I never knew.
You're sure of that?
Of course I'm sure. What are you driving at, Rogue?
Well, somebody knew. Whoever planted this gadget knew every detail. That she always sat in that chair, in that exact spot whenever she listened to him play.
Who could have known that except the other man?
Yeah, that's a natural thought, Crystal. I think it's what we were meant to think, but it isn't the answer.
Do you know the answer?
I know a lot of answers, baby. Now, did you ever tell Howard you were Nicky Barron's sister?
How did you ever find that out?
The old newspaper files of the trial, baby. You changed your name and the color of your hair, but you were still Nicky's sister, and you couldn't hide that.
She wasn't trying to hide it. I knew it all the time. You can't persecute the girl because of her brother.
I'm not trying to. I'm just saying she made a play for you so she could get her hands on those papers you were holding over her brother's head and destroy them. Right, Crystal?
Oh, it may have started like that, but...
Now, hold on, Rose. You're not trying to say that Crystal
I'm not saying anything. I'm just clearing the record. No. Crystal didn't kill your wife, Howard, because you did.
Me? Rogie, do you realize what you're saying? What possible motive could I have?
Well, I've got my choice of several, but most of them involve blackmail and legal loopholes, and you'd have had a neater way of getting around those, so I choose good old-fashioned jealousy, the one thing you wouldn't have known how to handle.
You must be out of your mind. How could I be jealous of something I didn't even know about?
But you did know it, Howard, and the very fact that you went to such pains to conceal your knowledge is the tip-off.
But that couldn't be. Doesn't make sense. Howard loves me. You know. You saw.
Sure I saw. I was meant to see. The guy's a lawyer, baby. You were Exhibit A. And I was going to be a star witness.
You're skating on very thin ice, Rogue. What makes you think I knew?
A little guy named Bert Hecht. A guy I hired to help me find your wife. Only he found her too fast. And he isn't that good. I figured right then he'd been keeping an eye on her for a long time for somebody else.
But why me?
You because he said you, Howard. Who but a jealous husband hires a detective to follow his wife? Yeah. Hecht's reports must have made good reading. All the intimate details about the private concerts and the special care.
All right, Rogue, that's close enough. I'm sorry.
Don't be a fool, Howard. Put down that gun.
Yes, I'm really sorry, Rogie, for you.
It's you I'm sorry for, Howard.
Don't tell me that. Nobody feels sorry for me. Not Howard Adrian. I don't need it.
Howard, you're insane. Put down that gun.
And you, Crystal, you tried to get close enough to hurt me just like all the rest, but you never could. Nobody gets close to me. Nobody knows what makes me tick in here.
Save it for the courtroom, pal. You're finished.
Yes, I know, but so are you, Rogue. So are you. If it hadn't been for you, Well, you're just too smart to live. Goodbye, Mr. Rogue.
For an instant, I stood expecting to fall dead, but I didn't. Instead, Howard jerked her head, spun around like a ballet dancer, and crumpled to the floor at the feet of his wife's body. And then I got it. The tuning fork was still attached. The gun was an automatic. And Crystal's high-pitched scream had set the thing in motion a second time. Howard hadn't thought of that when he stood in the line of fire, and when he did think of it, it was too late. He was killed, as you might say, by his own ingenious hand. Well, that wrapped it up. It was Bert Hecht's all-too-prompt appearance on the scene of the crime that had started the hunch I played against Howard's alibi. Just a little too coincidental. The police snared Hecht crossing the border to Mexico, and they picked up Barron while he was boarding a plane for Las Vegas. Hecht's original thought was to blackmail Howard. That's why he didn't tell me Howard had hired him 3 months before to spy on his wife. But the $10,000 was quicker, so he took that instead. Oh, yes, the papers. We never did find any papers. I kind of like to think that they didn't exist. You know what I mean?
You have just heard Barrie Sullivan as Private Detective Richard Rogue in this week's graphic adventure from Rogue's Gallery.
I'd like to thank our Rogues Gallery players who were Lorene Tuttle, Gerald Moore, Peter Leeds, and Ed Mack. Thanks, too, to Charles Vander, producer and director of your Pitch Bandwagon Summer Series, Rogues Gallery. Until next Sunday, then, this is Barrie Sullivan saying, don't forget to switch the pitch.
Laugh a while, let a song to your style, use Pitch shampoo. Don't despair, use your head, shave your hair, use Pitch shampoo.
Men, after shaving, be smile happy. For that tingling, frosty, fresh feeling, use Fitch's Skin Pep After Shaving Lotion. It's a smooth antiseptic lotion with a lasting He-Man scent. Get Fitch's Skin Pep After Shaving Lotion. To get your bullet ballpoint pen, send name, address, 25 cents, and the box top from Fitch Shampoo, Quin Oil Hair Tonic, or After Shaving Lotion to Fitch, Des Moines 6, Iowa. Jim Doyle speaking.
This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company. The preceding NBC program was transcribed earlier to be heard at this time. KFI, Los Angeles, Earl C. Anthony Incorporated, California distributor of Packard Motor Cars.
Welcome back. Well, I have to say, quite honestly, not quite as good as the Dick Powell version, and that's being generous. Not only was Sullivan's performance of Rogue quite different from Powell's, but the writing felt a little bit off. Of course, if there were more episodes, Sullivan might grow as at least a passable private detective show. But clearly a lot more generic than a role that was really best associated with Dick Powell. Well, there actually is one more version of Rogue's Gallery, and this one will take us into the 1950s. I'll tell you about it next week. Remember, we do one Dragnet episode per week, and you can listen to those to our old-time Dragnet podcast, the one that started it all, radiodragnet.com. And the Old Time Radio Superman Show at laserandsword.com. Well, this is it. This is our second anniversary since the launch of our first episode of Box 13. So it's great to be here and just continue to do this. And of course, this episode is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. Thank you so much for all your support. Here now is today's episode. I'll let George do it. Island in the Desert.
Personal notice, changes my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Standard Oil Company of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. Island in the Desert, another adventure of George Valentine.
Dear Mr. Valentine. Look at that. Dear Mr. Valentine. Just like any amateur, like any old woman who shakes in her boots. So, I'm going to say it different. George, you old buster, rescue me quick. I am surrounded by heat. I am shipwrecked in perspiration. I am lost in the middle of a hotel room, in the middle of an island, half in your country, half in mine. An island in the desert, amigo. In the middle of the continent. With dirty old buildings for trees, with snails for people. But George, if I could look out the window across the border, I know that you were there. George, then I could hope to escape. 2 days I am here, and it is I who am burning up. Because there is lots more in this old fair of border town beside the heat that stifles. Sometimes it catches on fire. And where I should find just ashes. Sometimes I find lizards, I find rattlesnakes, I find...
And that's all he wrote, huh? Hey, see, Mr. Valentine.
The sheriff.
Buenos dias, Pacheco. I'm mine.
Or is that what we call you? I mean, here in Mexico.
Oh, sure, baby. Sheriff, that's for me. They found the letter under his body, Mr. Valentine, there in the hotel room yesterday. I get it. Sheriff. Sure, why not, baby? They have one on your side, so I persuade my own people over here. You call me Tasco.
Well, I didn't mind coming down here in a hurry, but...
Pablo, the clean glasses, the cold beer.
If you want me to identify this guy who was riding, who got killed, you'd better show me his body, hadn't you?
Go slow, senor. Go slow. This is not Tijuana. First, I show you my hospitality, my little bar. Hey, wipe them off. Pablo, clean.
Pretty fancy hospitality.
What, the slot machine? Well, this is my business. The sheriff is my pleasure. But in my own bar, I can also keep eyes on people, eh? Hey, move over, Dutchman.
Yeah, excuse me.
So, 2 birds with 1 stone, huh? Here we are. No, looking at you, baby.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, tastes good in this weather.
Yeah.
Only this guy who got killed.
Hey, he seemed energetic and crazy like you, Mr. Valentine.
You mean stubborn?
Yes, stubborn.
All right, but what else did he look like?
Oh, good clothes from Mexico City. Young, tall, with a gun.
With a gun?
Oh, yeah, he has a gun.
Huh?
He carried it under his jacket.
Dutchman.
Well, excuse, Tasco, but this is the murder you talk about.
Wait a minute now. Go on, friend. What do you know about him?
Well, we eat in the same place, the same hotel. We don't talk, but I see him hang up his coat, so I... Americans. You are American. He was Mexican. I am Dutch, you understand, and so anxious to get a passport to USA. Perhaps if you could assist me with your fishing, I could...
What do you know about the man?
Well,
Nothing. You know nothing. Huh?
Nine, Tasco. Excuse me,
Americans must be careful. He's looking for a handout, that's all. All right, drink up. And I have already checked around. I have the facts the official police will need.
That's all. Let's skip the beer, huh, Tasco? You and I are going to see that body right now.
Ooh, morgue's the only cool place in town, huh?
Brother, you got a great sense of humor.
No, I am not your reverend, only a realist. Death comes often here. Like so. That is he.
Yeah. Morris showed it. Well, he never got a chance to use it. His name's Rayados, Mackie Rayados. He worked on a case together several years ago.
Case?
Yeah. Mackie was a private detective, one of the best ones in Mexico.
Private detective? Oh, so that's who he was. Hey, my sleepy town.
You must have had some idea. Didn't he have any identification on him? What have you been doing the past 24 hours?
Well, must do things easy, senor. In this heat? No identification. Just a man around town asking questions and hiding his name. The letter was all I had to find. Address you, huh?
Yeah, sure. I'm just a little sore, that's all. He was a nice guy.
Hey, the wheels are in motion. Don't worry. You have done your work. Now we'll do ours, senor. Well, what's the matter?
Fire siren.
Oh, yeah, of course, a grass fire. The rains never come, but the fire's on the American side in the hill in your town. Our engine goes to help sometimes, that is all. Don't be so nervous, so...
Mackie Rayados was a fire insurance investigator.
What?
You heard me. He investigated fires.
Well, so, in my town, that would be appropriate. The Americans say you can fry eggs on our pavement.
Vasco, you just said my job was done. Now you'll do yours. Is that right?
Well, yes, but my hospitality...
Okay, then go ahead and do it. I'm leaving, Buster. This place is too hot for me.
George, what on earth? Maggie was a friend of yours. You're not going to just run away.
Mackie didn't tell anyone in that town his name, Brooks. He left all his identification at home. Now, why would a licensed detective do a thing like that? Don't you get it?
Oh.
Yeah, sure. He didn't trust anybody in this town, not even the police.
Pascal?
Maybe, I don't know. But at least I don't want to beard that two-language double-talk artist again until I know what I'm talking about.
You're going to see the local police here on the American side?
Brooksy, we're going to see the American Fire Department.
Well,
there's only the three of us, Mr. Valentine, on regular. This is a small town.
I see.
I understand you had a grass fire a little while ago.
Why, yes, Miss Brooks. Didn't amount to much, though. Mexicans gave us a hand.
Hey, you burned your shirt and got your hair mussed up. Ain't that something? How do you think you'll impress a lady with your hair?
Place. He's our driver. Miss Brooks, Mr. Valentine.
And this is Al. He saves the babies and gets the medals. Pleasure.
How are you?
Hello. Place?
Yeah, like between win and show, yeah?
Place used to be a jockey.
What do you think I am now? Sure, I booted home more losers over in Caliente than you
Place.
ever...
Mr. Valentine's here to see about a murder.
Well, how much does he charge?
Very funny. Now, listen to me, both of you. A friend of mine, a Mexican detective, a fire insurance outfit, was across the border on some kind of a job. Well, I saw the Mexican engine come over to help you, so I thought maybe you'd gone over there sometimes. So Mackey must have been around to ask you boys some questions.
Hey, holy smoke. Tall young guy, kind of thin.
Yeah, there was a young Mexican here.
That's him.
Dead, huh? That guy's dead.
Murdered.
Yeah. I'm sure he was here a couple of days ago. He said he couldn't do anything official out of his own country, but he talked to the chief, to Slim. I think it was about there being too many fires over in that town. I think Firebug was his angle.
Hey, come on, Slim's already down at the boarding house. That's where we hang out. Sort of a pool room, lady.
Firebug. Mackey was asking questions about a firebug.
Well, we never have any trouble on our side, but over there, well, they've had a lot of fire.
Oh, sure, Brooksy. That makes sense. Now I know why Mackey wanted me here, why he started the letter to me.
What do you mean, George?
Oh, my. Hey, where's the telephone?
It's on the wall back in the office, sir.
I'll meet you in the boarding house, that pool room.
Well, it ain't no jockey club, Miss Brooks, but the clientele's nicer. Slim here rigged up an alarm bell outside for us.
Yeah, but it only rings when Place needs an excuse for missing a three-cushion shot.
Now, boys, I'm retiring soon, you see, Miss Brooks. That's what I told your friend Mackey, and I said that in my opinion, a fire's a fire. In 25 years of experience, I've never caught a firebug yet. And I said, in this area, it don't make much sense anyway, bringing coals to Newcastle, setting fire to Haiti, and furthermore,
All right, turn it
opinion,
off, Pop. Here he comes now. This is Slim, the chief, Mr. Valentine.
How are you, Slim? Brooksy, did you ask him about
We
the
made
fire?
out a list, George, the fires they've had lately in the other towns. What did you...
Son, you know you remind me of nephew I had once.
Yeah?
Almost as big and husky as Al here. I used to say to him in my
I'm
opinion...
sorry, Slim, but let me see that list, Angel. I'm in a hurry.
Here.
Well, now, this here nephew...
City-owned garage. That's the one.
What?
Yeah, 10 days ago. I talked to Mackey's office in Mexico City. They hadn't even been notified of his death yet. But that's why they sent him up here, to investigate the burning of that garage.
Well, now, I remember that one, but there sure wasn't nothing suspicious. City garage wasn't nothing but a ramshackle...
Chief, it was insured for $25,000 more than it was worth.
Holy smoke.
City garage. You know who that means, don't you, Mr. Valentine? I mean, well, it's just like in our country. Every once in a while, a guy gets control of a city...
Pascal? The one that calls himself sheriff?
You should hear what the Mexicans call it.
Uh-huh. I think I'll go back and see him now, Brooksy.
But, George...
Costco didn't start any fire, not himself he didn't. Well, why would Mackey want me here? When he's Mexican, the insurance is Mexican, the fires are in Mexico. Oh, no. Mackey must have found that something came from the USA. Only he couldn't do anything about it. He wasn't licensed here, so all he could do was ask questions on this side. He needed me to run down...
George, the firebug. Mackey must have found out that whoever started the fire came from over here, from the United States.
That's it exactly.
But then why are you going
I'm
down...
going to where the trouble happens, friend. To the place where the answers are. I got to find out what Mackey found.
Son, I might be a bit of a windbag sometimes, but I'd better point out to you that your friend Mackey, he maybe found out too much. Appears to me he must have got killed for asking questions, for getting too close to something hot.
Okay, Chief. I'll see how close I can get.
I'm sorry, Mr. Valentine, but I said no. I'm responsible for immigration here, and you can't cross that border.
I what?
But we were just over there a few hours ago.
We've got a local problem to deal with. We have to cooperate with the other side.
Oh, I get it. And they have to cooperate with Costco. But look, I left him with the impression I was going home for good, skipping his hospitality.
Don't underestimate him, Mr. Valentine. Like he didn't you.
But he has no authority.
But he's got a lot of friends. He'd know it if he got across his town. Frankly, Mr. Valentine, I'm thinking of you. I don't like to let a man get down there and then maybe come back home for good on a slab.
Oh, checkmate. Oh,
What's the matter?
Hey, listen.
The bell.
Wait a minute. That smoke, Angel, on the Mexican side. Sure, that bell's the one outside the pool and the fire alarm bell. Meet me there later.
George.
Nobody's going to stop a fire engine, Brooksy. But I'm going across, Costco or not. Hey, Slim, wait! You got a new fireman!
In just a moment, we'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. You've probably got your vacation trip already mapped out. Now, I don't know whether you're driving north or south or east or west, but I can throw in a reminder that will make your vacation miles more pleasant. Between Canada and Mexico and the Pacific and the Rockies, here's how to be sure of finding clean restrooms for your convenience. Just stop at independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations. Here, the restrooms are cleaned thoroughly and inspected often, kept well supplied with soap and towels. And when you stop at these service stations, you're never made to feel obliged to buy something. So wherever your vacation takes you in the West, count on the convenience of clean restrooms at standard stations and independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. You came to this double border town because your friend Mackie Rayedos, a Mexican private detective, needed your help. But before you arrived in the sleepy, sweltering place, Mackie had been murdered. Well, he wanted your help because there were things he couldn't do on the United States side of the border. And then you found that you couldn't get back into Mexico. But if your name is George Valentine, you've found an answer to the dilemma. You've remembered that no one ever stops a fire engine, at least when it's headed for a fire.
That was easy to roll off a log, Mr. Valentine. Nobody even noticed you.
Well, if I roll off this truck, how do you hang on
Grab
to this?
your bonnet, Nellie. We're round on the last turn. All right, boys. Spin that hose. Valentine. Plays you up against a little change of plans. You better get lost and hop to another part of town.
Yeah, I get it. Tosco's bar's on fire. It's Tosco's own building.
Wow, what a pile of insurance that must carry. Hey, and there's the guy who carries it. Go on, go on.
I'll duck out of sight fast. Thanks. So long.
Bye. Oh, hey.
Wait a minute.
Oh, senor. Oh, hello, America.
Yeah, you're one of the guys I'm looking for. You're the Dutchman who said he'd seen Mackie, the man who was murdered.
I'd like to talk to you about the United States.
You wanted to sell me some information, only Tosco shut you up.
Well, it was nothing, really.
Now, just hold it, Buster. You buttonhole all Americans. Well, Mackie apparently had it figured the guy who starts fires is American. Maybe starts them for Mexican property owners. So tell me about the Americans you see.
Oh, no, let me go. I don't know anything.
Hey, wait a minute, Q. On your coat here.
Let go.
I wondered why you were edging away. It's kerosene. It's kerosene.
Let go.
Okay, Mackie, we were wrong. Hey, stop that guy, will you? Get out of my way, will you? Hey, stop him. He's the one. Hey, which one? He started a fire out to see you. Get out of the way.
All aboard the stone, aboard.
Well, the fire's all over. I guess this is where Valentine and the Safe Passage part company. So long, fire engine. I got work to do right where I am. Hey, you. Wake up, will you? Hey.
Si, senor.
Now, look, I'm looking for somebody. He's a Dutchman. Well, look, this is the Bartzio, isn't it? hotel, rooming house, whatever you call it?
Oh.
Okay, well, does he live here? That's what I mean. Is he here? Look, there's a lady in a restaurant says he's been around for months, saving dough to get to the USA. Now, come on, tell me.
No, sorry.
Oh, like that, huh? Here. Dollar mean anything to you?
Yes.
All right, $2.
See?
Not at home, huh? Where else do we look, friend? Where else? Hold it. Maybe just his rum's good enough. Yeah. Well, what's the matter with you? Leave me alone here, will you? Come on, Gabby. It won't hurt your conscience. Okay, here's $5. Now get out. Find out where he's gone. Hey, what's this little book? Huh? Yeah. Mackie, I think we're getting even closer. Because I think we're wrong again. Now listen carefully, Brooksy. The Dutchman has a very interesting bank book.
George, I don't understand.
And yes, he's the firebug, all right. But look.
But how can you
But
be...
what? Hey, look, I can't hear you very well.
I can hear you, but wait till I raise this mouthpiece. Is that better?
Yeah.
Oh, George, I was so worried
Now skip
about
it. You're there in the firehouse, aren't you?
Yes, in the office. I've been walking around outside, but I grabbed the phone the minute you rang. They've been back here for hours.
Angel, you're alone there, aren't you?
Well, yes, everybody's over at the pool hall, I suppose.
Brooksy, we had this whole thing figured backwards. The Dutchman's closet's full of cotton wadding and kerosene. And he's also made bank deposits on every single date they had a fire down there.
Ouch.
Huh?
Oh, I burned my finger, that's all. George, there has been somebody in here where I am a few minutes ago. Cigarette butt still hot here on the pencil rack. I'm sorry, George. You said...
Bank deposits, Brooksy. The Dutchman's been paid for starting fires. So if there's an American involved, the way Mackie figured, it's the employer, not the firebug himself.
George.
Angel, I know it doesn't make sense, but I checked. Every penny the Dutchman's deposited has been in American money, and... Wait a minute. Call you right back, Brooksy. Oh, it's you.
See.
Oh, did you find him, friend? Where's the Dutchman?
Holy mackerel, mister. The Dutchman's dead. Just murdered. Bingo.
Huh?
See!
Brooksy, the Dutchman ran out of here just before I arrived. He'd received a phone call only a few minutes ago. His body's in an alley several blocks north.
Toward the border, George?
Yeah, that's right, Angel. He got called to his own death. And the operator said the call was from your side.
But you said a few minutes ago. Darling, that's just what I said to you about a cigarette being here, but...
Never mind. Get out of that place fast. Meet me at the American telephone office and step on it.
George, there's a record of all calls that go across the border, and the only one around that time to that Dutchman's number was from where we thought it was. And that phone on the wall in the firehouse.
All right, come on.
But, George, I was there, outside, walking around, and I didn't...
I know, but it happened, didn't it? Somebody was in there to phone. Well, let's cut through here and take a look.
Yes, George, somebody, just before me, but I...
Mr. Valentine, wait. Well, buenas noches, baby.
Tosca. A little out of your bailiwick, aren't you, big shot?
I explain.
How long have you been around here? Come on.
Since the fire. My fire. Oh, my beautiful bar. I come over. I've been looking for you, Mr. Valentine.
This had better be good, Buster.
I was not very helpful this morning about your friend Mackie.
Say that again.
Baby, please. Fire insurance investigation. It is an embarrassment, but not a crooked one, I'm sure. A city garage burned 10 days ago. They seem to be overinsured, but...
Your bar burned down today, and I bet it had plenty of insurance
Oh,
on it.
my beautiful bar, baby. Had not one penny of insurance. I want your help now. I'm ruined. Not one penny.
George.
Okay. Come on into the firehouse, into the office here. You leave the door open, Brooksy?
Yes, but I don't understand.
My insurance, I tell you...
I heard you, Buster. I heard you. You said it. So, all right. This case has nothing to do with insurance.
What?
Yeah. In fact, you make it a whole lot easier that way.
But,
Oh, I know Mackie came here on an insurance case. That garage. And there had been too many fires. But suppose he stumbled into something totally separate, and that's why he got killed.
Go on, George.
Sure, that's why he was murdered. And the Dutchman got his because he could have told me the whole story.
What story?
The Dutchman got a phone call and came rushing to an alley near the border. Whoever called from here must have told him where to come.
Who is whoever?
Yes, how can you ever hope to tell who made that call? Everybody comes in here.
Come on now, think, Brooksy, think. We'll never find a clue here, I know that. But what did you say to me? Something you said. You were the next person in here, next after the murderer. The cigarette was still burning, remember? You burned your finger.
Yes, George. You said you couldn't hear me until I raised the mouthpiece.
Yeah?
Oh, hi. Ran out of beer over the pool hall, got a call, a liquor store. What's the matter? Hiya, Tosco. Valentine.
Al's a big guy, isn't he, Place?
Huh?
Al, the guy you work with.
Well, cigarettes never stunted his growth.
So is Slim. Even Tosco here.
Hey, look, what in the name of...
But, you used to be a jockey. Yeah, put him home at Caliente. Drive a fire engine.
George, look, I think all of you smoke.
You've been exposing yourself to the sun, Mr. Valentine.
I'm sorry, Place. Go ahead, call the liquor store.
Sure.
Senor Valentine.
Yeah, Tosco. You kept asking me what else instead of insurance was involved. Well, that's simple, like all of it. But I grant you I didn't catch on.
What's all this?
I'm not sure yet, mind you. But all day I've been beating my head against a border with its check stations, officials, and red tape. But once today I went across there without even slowing up. Because nobody would stop a fire engine. International cooperation. Well, now, suppose a real smart guy wanted to take things across that border. Wouldn't that be a neat way to do it?
Smuggling?
Carrying whatever it is in the fire truck someplace? Only being a middleman, he'd have to meet a schedule. He'd have to pick his days. So naturally, he'd have to hire somebody to start fires. Then in the crowd and confusion, I suppose it's an easy matter to load up or unload whatever the smuggled goods of the day are.
George, about our telephone call, I remember now what I said.
I know. He just did it now. Just now, in reverse. See him? Brooksy, you used that wall phone right after the murderer did. You're not very tall yourself. But wait till I raise this mouthpiece, you said. The murderer who talked on it before you must have been pretty short. The jockey, Place here, had to shove it down to fit him just now.
Look, Mr. Valentine, just because I'm a jockey, so what if she is taller than I am? All this stuff you say, I ain't no...
Why, you little gun.
Let go of me. Cut it out. Let go of me.
Well, that's it, Sheriff. Guess you can go back to just frying eggs in your street now. Place admitted it was all true.
Yeah, sure. He arranged the fires and hired the Dutchman to start them for him whenever he wanted to bring over a load or pick one up.
It's so crazy, though. Ain't it, baby? He should kill men, too. He should do this thing with Mr. Valentine breathing down his neck.
Well, the heat was on, that's all. Heat like a snowball. He must have had a hot load in this truck to get rid of, so with us nosing around, it was the frying pan of the fire. He had to go ahead.
Like a snowball in a frying pan. Our weather finally got him. Yes, baby, I know. He makes sense.
All right, Tosco. But I don't like some of the words you use either.
Oh, please, I know. The big shot's not popular, but now I will have to go back to work to build up my bar again, so I will have no time for a big talk.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. But that wasn't what I meant. It's the way you keep talking to Miss Brooks. It's that word, baby.
So? And what is it, Mr. Valentine, you have against babies?
Huh? Well, that is...
That's all, George.
You might think that long weekend trips and hundreds of vacation miles would be the hardest kind of driving on your car's engine. But that's not true. Hometown driving is even tougher. For short trips with a cool engine produce acid-laden moisture inside cylinders. And that can account for as much as 80% of engine wear. How do you stop it? By getting RPM motor oil. First choice where driving's toughest. There's good reason why folks will tell you more people prefer RPM than any other brand of motor oil. RPM is compounded to keep a moisture-proof film of oil on engine parts, to fight off that rain of acid moisture. It clings to engine hot spots that other oils leave bare, stops carbon and sludge. In fact, it's the finest engine insurance you can buy. Ask tomorrow for RPM, first choice where driving's toughest. Ask at independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard Oil Company of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Virginia Gregg as Brooksy. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. John Daner was heard as Tosco, Sidney Miller as Place, Peter Leeds as Al, Herb Butterfield as Slim, Anthony Barrett as Mackie, and Larry Dobkin as the Dutchman. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter, your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, John Daner, a very good performance in here, and I would never have guessed he was the one doing the voice. Of course, if there was one voice that Daner was best known for, it was Paladin on Have Gun Will Travel. But we've heard some very different voices. With some actors like Gerald Moore, they're not great at the dialects, but their inflection and presence makes it possible for him to take on a lot of roles. Daner really was just a remarkable talent in that regards. And I think this was also a very solid mystery. Really, the end caught me by surprise. Perhaps one flaw in my imagination is that I don't always remember that jockeys are short. So perhaps one moral for mystery listeners is if it's mentioned that a character's a jockey, it's for a reason. So you gotta note that. Well, we have some reviews from off of iTunes. I love the old-time radio detectives and look forward to Adam's commentary. Thanks, Adam, for all the work you put into these shows. And then we have this comment, just a simple great show on Podcast Alley. Thank you so much for your support. And remember to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. This episode of Sherlock Holmes is brought to you by our listeners and their great financial support. Thank you so much for your support. Today's episode is called The Cadaver in the Roman Toga. Please enjoy.
From New York, the makers of Clippercraft clothes for men and 924 leading retail stores from coast to coast present the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Our stories are based upon the character of Sherlock Holmes, created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Sherlock Holmes is portrayed by John Stanley, Dr. Watson by Alfred Shirley, and the dramatizations are by Edith Meiser. Once again, we find ourselves in front of Dr. Watson's crackling fire.
Just a moment, Mr. Harris, just a moment till I put on a fresh pine knot so our listeners can really hear it. Yeah, that's the ticket. Now, go ahead, Mr. Harris.
Outside, a cold white autumn mist shrouds the black tree skeletons. But inside, we sit warm and cozy and ready for another of Dr. Watson's fabulous Sherlock Holmes adventures. What's it to be tonight, sir?
Your conversation of white shrouds and skeletons brings to mind one of the most bizarre problems we ever undertook to solve. It came dash close to being our final problem, as a matter of fact.
Sounds promising, Doctor. Nothing I like better than hearing about Holmes in a tight spot.
And whenever our adversary proved to be the notorious Professor Moriarty, it was generally a very tight spot.
Professor Moriarty, wasn't he the man Holmes referred to as the Napoleon of crime?
The same. Actually, this case began when Sir George Westbrook discovered a corpse dressed in a Roman senator's toga, tunic, and sandals. Holmes always maintained he could deduce a man's entire history from his wardrobe. But this time he...
Doctor, speaking of judging people by their clothes, I thought I...
Bless my soul. Yes, of course. I almost forgot. Let's have a few words from our sponsor, who is also an authority on the subject of gentlemen's apparel.
May I say, Dr. Watson, that most people, like Mr. Holmes, do judge people by their appearance. That's mighty important in connection with Clippercraft clothes. Because you'd never guess Clippercraft costs so little. Such low prices for such truly fine quality are rare, to say the least. Clippercraft suits are yours for only $35 and $40, with a few special numbers at $43.75. Top coats and overcoats are only $30 to $40, and sport jackets $24. These are planned values, the result of the Clippercraft plan concentrating the buying power of 924 leading stores across the country, resulting in tremendous savings in manufacturing and distribution costs. Remember, all this is yours in your own local independent store, where friendly attention is traditionally yours. Want to convince yourself? It's as easy as a visit to your Clippercraft dealers. Just compare Clippercraft with clothes selling for many dollars more. And now, Dr. Watson, to get back to the gentleman in the Roman toga.
All right, Mr. Harris. It all began on a freezing winter morning. My first view of Baker Street presented a dispiriting glimpse of icy sleet falling between the dun-colored houses. I donned my carpet slippers, my oldest trousers, and a well-worn bathrobe with the firm intent of enjoying a placid breakfast and settling myself in front of the fire for the rest of the day. I had no sooner opened our sitting-room door, however, when I caught sight of Holmes tramping about, swearing to himself and tossing a shiny golden coin into the air.
Confounded if I could only lay hands on the villain.
Morning, Holmes. What seems to be the difficulty today?
Difficulty? Moriarty is back in business. Only this morning, Mrs. Hudson received this coin. Here, have a look at it.
A handsome gold sovereign.
Flooding the town with them.
Great Scott, don't tell me Professor Moriarty, the greatest criminal in Europe, has turned philanthropist.
No such luck. That coin, Watson, is counterfeit. A brilliant job, more's the pity. Only an expert can spot it. No wonder Moriarty has been so quiet these last 2 months. It takes time to develop a coin as perfect as this.
Well, at least he hasn't had time for murder, arson, or any more of his serious crimes.
Serious? You think flooding the country with counterfeit coins isn't serious, Watson? Do you realize what this will do to the value of the pound?
Oh, by Jove, of course. Holmes, that's our doorbell.
Tell Mrs. Hudson I'm not at home.
But Holmes...
I'm not accepting any tuppenny-halfpenny cases. Not while Moriarty is threatening the credit of the Empire with his fraudulent gold pieces.
Come in.
Which of you gentlemen is Sherlock Holmes?
My friend over there has the honor.
Whatever it is, I'm busy.
Oh, but this is terribly, terribly important, sir. I don't know what to do. He's dead, you see.
Dead men do not interest me.
Couldn't you inform his relatives?
Well, that's just it. I don't know who they are. I don't even know who he is. I don't even know when he died. Albert, he's my assistant, says it must have been over 1,000 years ago, but that seems quite impossible. There's not the slightest sign of decomposition.
Oh?
On the other hand, until Albert and I broke through this morning, no one had been in that room for centuries.
What room?
The Roman baths. I discovered them, you know. The bricks are undoubtedly ancient Roman. Even the cadaver was clad in a senator's toga. And genuine, I assure you. We found him there in one corner.
Now, let's get this straight. You found a fresh corpse dressed in a Roman toga in some Roman ruins that have been buried for centuries.
Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Watson, what are you waiting for? Bring the gentleman a chair.
But you said you were busy.
Don't be irrelevant. This sounds interesting.
Oh, very well. Well, won't you sit here, Mr.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm afraid I forgot to introduce myself. Here's my card.
Read it for me, Watson.
Sir George Westbrook, President L&WA Association.
That means London and Wessex Archaeological Association.
Of course. I remember hearing the Corporation of London had engaged you to investigate some ancient Roman remains which you discovered in the Billingsgate section.
That's right, Mr. Holmes. They're under the basement of the Coal Exchange in Lower Thames Street. Albert and I have been burrowing away down there for over a month. This morning we broke through the final bit of brickwork and emerged into a large subterranean chamber. All right, Albert. I think the opening's big enough. Yeah, give me the lantern. I'll go through first.
Yes, sir. Why, Sir George, your hand is shaking.
Is it any wonder? I'm excited, Albert. Unless I'm very much mistaken, we've unearthed some baths that were built by the early Romans. Yes, well, come along. Careful. Don't tear your clothing.
I say, sir, it is a biggish room, isn't it?
Splendid, Albert, splendid. Look at that ceiling, will you? In almost perfect condition.
No, what's that in the corner over there? Looks like a heap of white cloth.
No, there's a leg sticking out of it. Good Lord, it's a body.
We'd best have a look at it, sir.
Yes, but be careful. Don't touch it. Don't touch anything.
What's that white thing he's got on?
Why, it's a toga, Albert. A Roman toga.
It's sopping wet, sir. If you ask me, he's been drowned.
Drowned? Did you say drowned, Sir George?
That's right, Mr. Holmes.
No, but that's impossible. There hasn't been any water in those baths for over 1,000 years.
Interesting. Very interesting. Tell me, Sir George, what was the condition of the air in that chamber when you broke in? Stale, vitiated?
No, Mr. Holmes, it was quite fresh. That's curious now that I think of it, because there was no other entrance to the room except the one we'd come through. The doorway to the rest of the baths was filled by a great heap of bricks and rubble.
You were unable to identify the corpse?
As a matter of fact, we didn't do any further investigating. Albert was quite overcome by the sight of the body. I'm afraid he's never been very strong about such things since the time that mummy disintegrated in his arms while we were working on those pre-Hellenic excavations in Crete. I sent him home and came straight here to consult you.
You mean you left no one behind to guard the body?
No, Mr. Holmes.
What? Where's my hat? Where's my coat? Watson, don't just stand there. There's no time to lose.
I suppose I should have informed the authorities, Mr. Holmes, but the thought of all those stupid Scotland Yard inspectors trampling around in my beautiful ruins like a herd of elephants. I left a couple of dark lanterns burning. And yes, here they are, in this packing case. All right, now, follow me, gentlemen.
Why do basements have to be so damp and depressing?
Careful there, careful. This is where we started to dig. It's a rather rough tunnel slanting downward. You'll have to bend over, I'm afraid.
You're sure that this earth won't cave in on us?
No, I don't think so, unless, of course, someone should give it a tremendous push of some sort. Here's where we broke through the wall. Well, you'll be interested in this, Mr. Holmes. Notice the masonry.
Yes, the bricks are undoubtedly Roman. Let's see, they measure 9.5 inches long by 4.5 inches broad and only 1 3/4 inches thick.
Not unlike those of the Roman baths at Rochester.
Except that there the tiles are a mere 1.5 inches thick and measure 16 inches by 12.
Oh, really, Holmes? Did we come here to discuss bricks or inspect a body?
Never neglect an opportunity to increase your store of knowledge, Watson.
And stuff my brain with a lot of useless tittle-tattle, not me.
Here's the hole we made in the wall, Mr. Holmes. It's not very large, I'm afraid. Well, I'll go through first and light the way. Now, gentlemen, if you'll follow me.
I'll go next, and you can bring up the rear, Watson, with the other lantern. Now then, Watson, alley-oop.
Don't be in such a rush. Here, take the lantern. It's a tight squeeze, you know. Hello, I think I'm stuck.
If you'll pull his other arm, Sir George.
Right.
Oh, phew, glad to get out of that.
I told you should go on a diet, Watson.
Oh, just because you're satisfied to look like a walking skeleton, Hello, this is a gloomy-looking spot. More like a tomb than the sort of place one thinks of as an elegant Roman bathing establishment.
Yes, it certainly is more like a tomb at present, complete with the remains of the deceased. Although how he was able to insinuate himself into this chamber...
Yes, quite. A superficial survey of the walls and ceilings certainly shows no signs of any recent entry, except by way of the hole through which we just dragged Watson. Interesting, very interesting. Yes, suppose we view the body we came to investigate.
Yes, he's over here, Mr. Holmes, against the south wall. Oh, watch your step. The flooring here is a bit uneven. Here he is, exactly as we found him, lying on his face with one arm stretched over his head.
Skinny old boy, wasn't he? I say, these robes or whatever it is he's wearing, they are sopping wet.
Yes, the poor fellow was undoubtedly drowned. Lungs still full of water.
Extremities icy, rigor well advanced. Well, he's been dead 6 to 8 hours, I should say. Holmes, how about it?
Not necessarily. The floor he's lying on is extremely cold, also the air.
Of course, the really fantastic part of the whole picture is the man's raiment. The tunic and the toga with the wide purple stripe. Even the thong sandals are the authentic garments of an early Roman senator.
So I see. Whoever this person was, he was thoroughly at home among Roman customs and manners. That ring of office on his outstretched hand is undoubtedly authentic.
Oh, look here, Holmes. You don't actually believe this is a genuine Roman senator who got himself drowned in this room and managed somehow to stay in this state of preservation?
No, Watson. There are several obvious flaws to that theory. In the first place, although the costume is authentic in line, cut, and drape, the woolen fabric of this toga was woven not on an ancient hand loom, but by a modern machine. Second, the liquid in which the gentleman was drowned would have evaporated in a short time, even in very stale air. And third, this room is neither the frigidarium, which was the cold plunge, nor the caldarium, which was the warm. No, judging by the recessed benches built into the walls, this room was the sudatorium, or what the Romans called the vapor bath.
But of course, Mr. Holmes. Why didn't I think of that? But, good Lord, then how was he drowned? And why?
Suppose we turn the victim over, Sir George. His identity may give us the answer to those questions.
Righto.
Easy.
By Jove, he looks even more Roman from this side. That nose, those hawk-like features, like some rapacious old Caesar on a Roman coin.
Rather accurate and appropriate description, my dear Watson. Yes, this, unless I'm very much mistaken, is Brutus Octavius Bainbridge, the world's greatest numismatologist.
You mean the coin expert?
But of course. I thought the old fellow looked familiar. What? I've heard he often wore Roman dress when he was lounging about at home. Oh, so that part of our mystery is a perfectly normal explanation.
Don't be too disappointed, Sir George. There are several other little questions to be cleared up, the answers to which may be rather more exciting than you anticipate.
What do you mean, Holmes?
Well, for one thing, Mr. Bainbridge disappeared very suddenly from his home one night a little over 2 months ago. About a fortnight later, the British Isles began to be flooded by an extraordinarily clever counterfeit sovereign.
By Jove.
I pointed out to Scotland Yard that there might possibly be a connection between the two events.
You mean Mr. Bainbridge was a counterfeiter?
I mean, as the greatest living authority on coins and coinage, he was undoubtedly kidnapped by a band of unusually daring counterfeiters and forced to assist them in their work.
I thought you might possibly come to that conclusion, Mr. Holmes.
What? Great Scott! That voice. Where does it come from?
Over a hidden speaking tube of some sort, I imagine.
But who is it?
Unless I'm very much mistaken, that voice belongs to my arch adversary. Greetings, Professor Moriarty. So now you've taken up counterfeiting. Have I destroyed so many of your activities that you're running short of funds?
I've warned you repeatedly, Holmes, that you are getting to be a nuisance. Surely you must have realized how dangerous that can be.
But, my dear Professor, surely you must realize that danger is the breath of life to me.
This time, Holmes, you've overreached yourself.
On the contrary, Moriarty, it's you who have gone too far. Watson, get Sir George out of here. I'll keep talking to give you a chance to escape. Was it necessary to kill Bainbridge after you'd finished picking his brains?
Not necessary, my dear Holmes, but expedient. We drowned him. I wonder if Dr. Watson can guess why.
Well, dashed if I can. Why not shot or strangled? I say, what's all this about, Holmes?
Get out of here, you idiot.
But leave you in danger, I should say not.
You see, Dr. Watson, drowning would serve two purposes. It would eliminate Mr. Bainbridge, and it would provide a tasty lure for Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
What do you mean?
I knew he'd never turn down an invitation involving a corpse in a toga, ostensibly drowned in an ancient Roman bath.
Watson, if you have no regard for your own safety, at least have the intelligence to get Sir George out of here.
I'm dashed if I understand what's going on here.
You will, Sir George, you will. Sorry to have to execute you, too, but I'm afraid you signed your own death warrant when you sent for Mr. Sherlock Holmes instead of Scotland Yard. I rather thought you would, you know. Ah, well, this is what comes of associating with anyone who is foolish enough to think he can outwit Professor Moriarty.
Look here, you old blunderbuss. You needn't think you can bullyrag Sherlock Holmes or me either.
No.
Great Scott, what's that?
I rather imagine one of the good professor's hirelings has blown up the entrance to Sir George's tunnel.
What do you mean we're buried alive in this sepulchre?
Just like Aida and her young man. Isn't it romantic? You might try singing yourself to death as they did. Such a waste of time, I always thought. What a pity Mr. Bainbridge won't be able to join you. You'd have made such a jolly quartet.
That's torn, eh, Holmes? Looks as though we're entombed in this blasted place until Sir George's assistant turns up tomorrow morning and finds the tunnel caved in.
Tomorrow, my dear Watson, is Sunday, and the day after a bank holiday. Better blow out one of the lanterns and save it for later.
But this is terrible, Mr. Holmes. Why, we'll be asphyxiated by the time Albert arrives on Tuesday.
I doubt it, Sir George. There's a very definite movement of air. Fresh air. Icy fresh air. If you'll wet a finger and hold it up, you'll notice what amounts to a slight breeze. No, I doubt that we shall die from any lack of oxygen. We may very well perish, however, from cold and exposure. It doesn't take long to freeze to death in this temperature.
Oh, you needn't be so confounded cheerful about it, Holmes.
Don't interrupt, Watson. As I was saying, we may very well expire unless we can discover how Mr. Bainbridge's body was brought into this room.
What good will that do?
Any passageway large enough to permit the entrance of this corpse will also serve as an exit for Sir George and myself. You, Watson, may have a bit of trouble.
Oh, you go to blazes.
But, Mr. Holmes, what passageway could there be? As you know, the architecture of the ancient Roman baths was fairly identical. There was obviously only one doorway into this bath, and that's blocked by a great fall of earth and bricks.
Quite. But aren't you forgetting, Sir George, the small, unseen, tube-like passage that invariably ran under all the rooms except the coal plunge?
Of course. The hypocaust.
Oh, what in thunder is a hypocaust?
A smallish tunnel lined with red paving squares, which ran from a furnace outside the buildings under all the principal rooms of a Roman bath. If we can discover some loose tiling in this floor, we may thank the ancient Romans for inventing what our poor, retarded civilization considers a modern improvement, namely central heating.
It's discouraging. I've dug up 24 spots.
Cheer up, Watson. At least the activity's kept you from freezing to death.
Yes, it's ruined my trousers. Good thing I was wearing my old suit. I say, the light's getting dimmer. Holmes, the second lantern is about burnt out.
Keep digging, Watson. It's our only chance.
I say, Mr. Holmes, could you come over here a minute? I think I've found a sort of grating under this last batch of bricks.
Good Lord, let's see.
Yes. Yes, we found it. Watson, help me with these bricks. There. Watson, bring the lantern.
Right-o. There they are.
Now then, let's see.
There's black down there, isn't it?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sir George. We are now in the vapor room. The blocked-up entrance over there leads to the hot bath. That would put the cold plunge on our left. No good going in that direction. When we go down into the tunnel, we should turn right to get out.
Quite correct, Mr. Holmes.
I'll go first. Give me the lantern, Watson.
It's flickering, Holmes. It's It's gone out.
Very well, then. We'll have to crawl our way out in the dark.
I feel as if I'd been crawling like a snake for hours.
Stop complaining, Watson. At least we're not sealed up in that vault.
Well, maybe not, but I can't say this is any great improvement. Oh, I don't ask to stand upright. If I could only get to my hands and knees for a moment.
There's a shallow pool of water here.
How jolly. I could use a bath, only I'd just as soon not have ice water, you know.
Save your breath. How are you getting along, Sir George?
I'll manage.
Now what?
Something ran over my hand.
Probably a sewer rat.
Delightful. Maybe we could take it home for a pet.
Quiet, Watson. I think we've reached the end of the tunnel. Yes. It opens out.
You mean I can finally get up off my stomach?
Yes, give me your hand.
Oh. I think my back is permanently bent.
Hello? There are some steps here. Steps going up.
And the door at the top. It's open a slit. Yeah. There's a light. Well, there must be another entrance at ground level.
Yes. Follow me and be very quiet. Better have your revolver handy, Watson. This may well be the most dangerous part of the entire adventure. Easy now. Let's have a look through the crack before we open the door.
It's a large, bare-looking place. Hey, what's all that machinery?
Those are melting furnaces, presses, weighing apparatus, rolling machines. And on the far side are the acid and water baths in which Bainbridge was undoubtedly drowned. In short, you see before you a very complete mint for the coining of counterfeit money.
Mr. Holmes, who's that sinister-looking man stepping out of the shadows? There. Look, he's adjusting a jeweler's magnifying glass in one eye. Now he's hunched over a pile of golden coins. Good Lord. His head oscillates from side to side like a snake.
Enjoying the fruits of your labor, Moriarty?
You, Holmes!
You didn't expect us to return your call quite so promptly, eh, Professor? Don't bother to reach for that acid. Watson has you covered. Better put your hands up. That's right. Now, you'll come around that table. Slowly. That's right. I have a little present for you. A pair of bracelets that...
Holmes, he's going through the window!
Shoot, Watson, shoot, confound it.
I can't.
Why not?
Well, blast it all, you asked me out of the house in such a dither this morning I forgot to slip my revolver into my overcoat pocket.
Don't look so crestfallen, Watson. I'm rather relieved we didn't get the handcuffs on the professor. Once he's safely behind bars, I'll have no opponent worthy of my talents. I should probably die of sheer boredom.
You mean sheer conceit?
That was quite a story, Dr. Watson. There's always plenty of action when Professor Moriarty's around.
How true, Mr. Harris, how true. This particular adventure had a rather pleasant epilogue.
What was that, Doctor?
Oh, well, suppose I tell you about it after we pay our respects to the gentlemen who so graciously make this program possible.
What could be fairer? You know, the thing you remember about Clippercraft clothes is not their low prices. Not until you're ready to buy again, that is. What you really live with is Clippercraft's superb styling, the perfect fit, fine tailoring, and long-wearing fabrics. No one would dream your Clippercraft suit had cost only $35 or $40, or $43.75 for a few special numbers, or that your top coat or overcoat had cost only $30 to $40, or your sport jacket $24. No, these exceptional values are made possible by the unique Clippercraft plan, concentrating the buying power of 924 leading stores across America, bringing these fine clothes to you in a pleasant atmosphere where you get friendly personal attention. Selling beautifully tailored, expensive clothes at inexpensive low prices at the nation's finest stores is the great big idea behind the Clippercraft plan. That's why men who know insist on Clippercraft clothes. So be sure to visit the Clippercraft store in your city.
The leading stores in the metropolitan area that bring you Clippercraft clothes are Saks 34th, Broadway at 34th Street, Manhattan, Abraham and Straus, Brooklyn, the Boulevard Men's Shop, Kresge, Newark, New Jersey, and the B&B Clothes Shop, 16408 Jamaica Avenue, Jamaica. These great, courteous, and friendly stores are proud to add their names to that of Clippercraft in the label of your suit, top coat, sports jacket, and overcoat.
And now, Dr. Watson, about the epilogue to the adventure of the corpse in the Roman toga.
The officers of the Royal Mint tendered Holmes and myself a dinner in recognition of our invaluable services in breaking up a counterfeiting outfit which had threatened the value of British currency. Holmes received a large illuminated scroll and a sizable check.
Always acceptable, eh, Dr. Watson?
Yes, quite so. I was presented with the priceless Roman ring of office, which we had found on the dead man's finger, and a magnificent copy of Vitruvius the Architectura. On the flyleaf in Holmes' handwriting was the inscription, "One never knows what bit of useless tittle-tattle may save a man's life." The chapter on the hypocaust was underlined.
Got you that time. And now, Dr. Watson, I wonder if you'd like to give us a hint about next week's story.
Well, next week, I think I'll tell you how Holmes and I found a man shot under a smashed streetlight. All the evidence pointed in one direction, but the victim had been shot at point-blank range, and there was only one wound, but we heard two shots. Holmes always referred to it as the case of the well-staged murder.
Makers of Clippercraft clothes and 924 leading stores from coast to coast have brought you another in the new series of broadcasts featuring the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is produced and directed by Basil Lochran, with special music by Albert Berman. If you don't know your Clippercraft dealer, write Clippercraft, 200 Fifth Avenue, New York City. Hunger and starvation are the enemies of civilization and democracy. It's up to every American, man, woman, and child, to save a little food every day. In that way, the people of Western Europe can be helped in their fight for decency and freedom. Be sure to listen next week to Sherlock Holmes in the case of the well-staged murder. If you'd like to attend the Sherlock Holmes broadcasts in New York, see your local Clippercraft dealer, and he'll tell you how to obtain your tickets. Speaking for Clippercraft Clothes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, the whole thing with Holmes basically counting amount of useless information that might someday come in handy is kind of different from the book. It was actually in the Study in Scarlet. Watson was absolutely shocked by Holmes's lack of knowledge in a variety of areas, as Holmes focused on those areas most likely to be helpful to him in being a detective. And plus, I think Professor Moriarty was a little bit sloppy here, basically betting that Holmes couldn't find the same entrance that Moriarty had gotten in on. So there were some weak spots in this particular episode. Well, now we turn to listener comments. These all come from email and comments on the blog. Regarding episode 509, you mentioned Watson's comment that Holmes would be buried in Westminster Alley. More interesting to me is the increasingly explicit references, less obvious in previous version of the show, that Holmes joins Watson in the still alive in 1947 crowd. Although Doyle did not set an explicit birth year for either man, this would easily put the both of them in their mid-90s. I'm sorry that I cannot agree with the announcer in his conviction that Holmes' burial will not be for many years yet. It's pushing believability that both are still alive at this point of time. Surely the producers can't keep this illusion up for much longer. Well, you'd be surprised. This had been the formula for Sherlock Holmes shows going back to 1930. When they came on the air with the sponsor of G. Washington Coffee. And of course, it was a lot more believable back then. But they would actually continue this pretty much through the Ben Wright series running from 1949 to 50 as just a traditional trapping of the series. Timothy comments, I finally figured out why I don't like Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes, other than because of Kreml hair tonic. When Dr. Watson blathers on, Rathbone's Holmes treats him as a dear old friend and gently tells him that it isn't time for what he is saying. Conway's Holmes is the same situation, is irritated and rudely chastises Watson, saying to him, shut up, you old fool, I have work to do and you're getting in the way. Conway pulls off the voice, but not the character of Rathbone's Holmes. Keep up the good work, Adam. I'm caught up through June of 2011 now. Soon I'll totally be up to date. I don't think that the John Stanley Sherlock Holmes has been much of a cure for that particular issue. Thanks for the comment, and I think that is a true evaluation. And some people will say that the crankiness and sarcasm fits the character better, but I definitely like the Rathbone characterization. But Conway wasn't bad, just not as good as Basil Rathbone. Finally, we have this from Todd, who says, how many episodes of the new Adventures of Sherlock Holmes exist? And he references a Wikipedia article that says that there may be another 150 floating around. And asks, is this true? Thanks for your help, and please keep up the great website. And of course, referring to the new Adventures of Sherlock Holmes episodes with Rathbone and Bruce, I would be very surprised if there were another 150. The Wikipedia article indicates a total of 150 in circulation. They also include the Tom Conway years, which gets us up to 90-some episodes currently in existence when you count in the Tom Conways. There could be quite a few more. I would say that while it's very hard to tell what might be existence that's not in circulation, because they're in private collections, I'm going to write a more detailed article on non-circulating episodes, and that'll be up at greatdetectives.net. But I could see another 50 or so episodes being out there held by collectors and not just in circulation right now. But nobody can really say for sure. But thanks so much for the question. All right. Well, that'll do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Well, we begin on a bit of a down note. Norman Corwin, one of radio's greatest writers, considered the poet laureate of radio, has died this month at the age of 100. He was known for a lot of his great wartime stories that poignantly brought home the realities of war and what we were fighting for during World War II. He also wrote a lot of lighter works, such as his Plot to Overthrow Christmas, a classic story that was very lighthearted. But regardless, during the 1930s and 40s, and into the 50s a little bit, there wasn't anyone quite as good as Corwin overall. His stuff, like I said, tended to be a bit more perhaps highbrow than what we usually play here. But Mr. Corwin did write a little bit of a satire of mysteries, and we're going to go ahead and feature that. It's called Murder in Studio One. It's a program that aired 70 years ago this month, and we'll be bringing that to you tomorrow in honor of Mr. Corwin as a very special. So plan on listening for that. Before we get started with today's episode, I do want to let you know about Johnny Dollar Air. JohnnyDollarAir.com is powered by Priceline. So that means you've got quite a few ways to save money. You can either name your own price on hotels, rental cars, and airline tickets, or choose from great published specials. In addition, you can save even more by booking a travel package together, such as hotel and rental car, or hotel, rental car, and airline ticket. And you help to support the great detectives of old-time radio. So when you make your travel plans, remember JohnnyDollarAir.com first. Now it's time for today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. It's the Elliot Champion matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for John Lund as
Johnny Dollar.
Don Vickers, Johnny. Hey, how would you like to go to California with me?
Oh, I like that fine, but do I have to work?
If you want to eat while you're out. Johnny, we've written a lot of insurance for Los Angeles contractor named Elliot Champion.
Uh-huh.
Last night, his latest project went up in smoke. An office building he completed 2 weeks ago.
How much is the policy worth?
Damages over $500,000. I talked with our arson inspector long distance. He had some interesting things to say.
Like what?
The file looks phony.
I'll pack my things.
John Lund in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Great Eastern Fire and Casualty, New York City. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Elliot Champion matter. Expense account item 1, $38.87, train fare and incidentals between Hartford and New York, where I met Agent Don Vickers and we made arrangements to fly to California. Item 2, $28 even, one raincoat. Item 3, $199.15, transportation New York to Los Angeles. En route, Vickers filled me in on the details concerning Mr. Elliot Champion.
I met him once, Johnny, when he was in New York last time.
Uh-huh.
Vickers, I said to myself, look well on this man. He may be the last of his kind.
How's that, Don?
Well, Champion's 60 or better now, and he's been everything in his lifetime. Sailor, soldier, lawyer, financier, Lord knows what all. One of those birds who started with absolutely nothing. He talked fast, worked hard, and what he couldn't get one way, he managed to get another. All in all, he's done pretty well. I didn't like him, Johnny.
Go on.
Well, maybe I was just jealous of his aggressiveness, or maybe it's that I'd heard stories of how he ran roughshod over big and little. Well, it's about this office building.
Yeah?
Ives, the man who called me, has worked on several arson cases for us. Said the fire was of a definite incendiary origin.
Can he prove it?
Yeah. Nothing fancy. Somebody poured a few gallons of gasoline over some leftover building materials in the elevator shaft and threw a match in it.
Oh, pretty effective. What else?
Well, Champion's in financial trouble. The insurance would be better than the building. Ives will probably have more for us when we get there. He's been working on it from the start.
I feel like a patsy.
Oh, how's that?
Well, Norman Ives has always been the best arson man in the business since I can remember. And you're no slouch. What am I doing in this?
Protection, Johnny. If Champion fired that building down and collect the insurance, I want to know about it. Ives might find the answer, you might find it, or I might find it. But where Champion's involved, it won't be easy. We'll all have to work.
Are you scared of this guy?
Yeah. Nobody's ever beat him.
Expense account item 4, $7.50. Incidentals upon arrival. Vickers and I checked into the New Statler Hotel, grabbed a few hours' sleep, and the next morning drove out to the scene of the fire with Norman Ives, the arson expert.
A watchman on duty had seen a man loitering in the vicinity of the building when he came to work at 6 o'clock. 3 other people remember the same man, a druggist, a filling station man, and a newsboy. All of their descriptions were pretty close. Medium build, medium height, medium weight. Between 25 and 30.
Well, that's helpful.
Yeah. Now, the druggist and the man who ran the filling station could only supply the description, but the newsboy swears he saw this man sneak around the side of the building around 8 o'clock. The fire broke out about 8:30.
Anybody see him leave?
The newsboy says he saw him catch a bus on the corner right before the fire broke out. The bus driver on the line wasn't any help. The police have broken out every mug they can find in the arson files.
Well, if the man with all the medium things about him is the man, this might not be so tough.
No luck so far. I don't think they'll pick him up in the arson files, Dollar. It was an amateur job. I'll show you exactly how when we get there.
What about the police lineup?
Well, they've had 3 so far. One coming up tonight and one tomorrow. And I'd say that's a long chance, too.
No professional, no firebug?
There's a possibility, sure, but none of it seems right to me. A bug will plan it and perform it just like an expert. And he'll stand around and watch it burn. And maybe he'll call somebody up and tell him how happy he is. But I don't think our boy is any bug. There's something else in it, or I miss my guess.
Well, you're the specialist. Any ideas?
Not a one. I talked to the men who had been working in the building that day. There was no gasoline stored in that basement when they left work at 4 o'clock. But somebody moved in at least 5 gallons of gas between 4 and 6 when the watchman came on. How he did it, where he got it, I don't know. But it's one thing we'll have to find out.
The police have any leads?
They're working as hard as they know how. It would take a long time to check every filling station and find out who bought a 5-gallon can of gasoline.
Yeah.
We're up against something here, and
Has anybody talked to Champion?
Not yet. All he knows is that the fire people are trying to discover how the blaze started. I thought it best to leave it that way until we get our bearings. Well, here we are.
Sure looks like a mess.
Yeah. Well, come on. I'll show you how much of a mess it really is.
We spent the rest of the day covering the ruins of the 10-story office building that had been gutted by flames 2 days before. Ives acquainted us with all of the necessary details on exactly how the fire had been started. That night, we sat in on the lineup at the police station while the 4 witnesses looked at some 60-odd suspects. There were no identifications. The next day, while Vickers and Ives worked with the police, I went out to Elliot Champion's real estate office in Glendale. Expense account item 5, $5 taxi fare, including tip. Remember that old saw about how a woman in love is always beautiful? Well, when I walked in, I had no idea Mildred Champion was in love and no idea that she was beautiful. Her sallow face, without makeup, framed in a wisp of never-set blonde hair, wasn't flattered by the shapeless black dress and low-heeled shoes that she was wearing. Certainly not the going idea of beauty. Nor did her conversation reveal anything to indicate love.
Yes, may I help you?
Mr. Elliot Champion, please. My name is Dollar.
Dollar? D-O-L-L-A-R?
He's not expecting me.
Your business, Mr. Dollar?
Great Eastern Fidelity. It's about the fire.
Oh, just a moment, please.
Well, what is it, Mildred?
Mr. Dollar is here, Uncle Elliot.
I don't want to see anybody today. I told you that, you idiot.
He's from the insurance company. It's about the fire.
Oh. Now, send him in. You go on out to lunch.
Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Dollar, straight ahead.
He always like that?
He's nice today.
I see. Thanks, Mildred.
Hmm?
Well, that's your name, isn't it?
Yes. Straight ahead.
Dollar?
Yes, Mr. Champion.
Come on in. I'm not going to ask you to sit down. I know why you're here. You have insurance investigator written all over you.
Well, in that case, we can get right down to business, Mr. Champion.
We certainly can. Do they know what caused the fire yet?
They do. Somebody poured gasoline on some rubbish in the basement. It was deliberate.
I thought so.
Why?
Because Joseph Harrison is out of prison now, and he swore he'd get back at me.
Who's Joseph Harrison?
Harrison worked for me at one time. Discovered stealing money from me, and I prosecuted him. He was sent to prison for 5 years. He's the one.
You seem pretty certain of that.
Of course I'm certain of it. I know what enemies I have, what friends.
There are some witnesses who got a look at the man who we believe started the fire. What does Joseph Harrison look like?
I don't remember. I hardly ever remember faces.
But you remembered his threat.
What I remembered was the small story in the newspapers last week, that he was being released from prison.
Well, we'll certainly look him up and have a talk with him.
Now, that's very good of you, I'm sure.
Now, look, this can be a difficult thing all the way around, or we can cooperate, Mr. Champion.
I understand you people have been over to my bank, looking into my personal affairs.
I don't think I have to beat around the bush with you, Mr. Champion. There's a lot of money at stake here. We'll have to hold up your claim until we get all the facts.
You'll pay that claim, Mr. Dollar.
I didn't say we wouldn't. But we'll have to be satisfied in all directions.
Then satisfy yourself. Get Joseph Harrison. He burned down my building.
A review of the trial and proceedings in which Joseph Harrison had been convicted of grand theft, his threats at the time of the trial, substantiated Champion's information. When two of the witnesses identified Harrison's mug picture, an APB went out. We worked with the police. When all the routine places had been covered, we branched out and went out after anybody.
Who are you?
My name's Dollar. Are you Mr. Angle?
That's right.
Insurance investigator, Mr. Angle. Trying to locate a former client of yours, Joseph Harrison.
Oh, my goodness. I defended Joe over 6 years ago. You come in. I always fix my own dinner. Poached eggs and half. Ulcers. Name's Dollar?
Yeah.
Hey, you want something?
No, thanks.
Do you mind if I finish?
No, go right ahead.
What led you to me?
Well, covering everybody. We're very anxious to get hold of Harrison and talk to him.
Well, I don't think I'm going to be much help, Dollar. What's it all about?
He's been identified as the man who started a fire in the Elliot Champion building.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Are you, Mr. Angle?
Truly sorry. Joe Harrison was a nice kid who got in a little trouble, is all. But a calendar job. Born with one war just finished, a depression on deck, and another war in the hole. Makes a difference in a man's life. The calendar got him. Everything was against him at the trial, too. Champion poured it on. He didn't have to, but he did. He could have let him off.
Did you try to talk him into that?
No, I didn't. Nobody talks Elliot Champion into anything. And besides, Joe would never admit taking the funds. He said he was framed. Well, he didn't have a prayer with all the evidence Champion had against him. Why...
I read the trial notes.
Yeah, and that's it. Joe pleaded not guilty in the face of everything, and he went up. I wanted him to make a guilty plea and go on the mercy of the court. It was his first offense.
Well, he's out now, and as I said, it looks like he's trying to get even with Champion for prosecuting him.
Oh, for a lousy $10,000.
Has he gotten in touch with you?
Oh, no.
You ever write to you from prison?
No.
Do you have any idea where he'd be in town, Mr. Angle?
No, I don't.
Well, then I guess I'll leave you to your eggs.
Oh, yeah. Dollar. If you find Joe, I'd like to know about it.
Why, Mr. Angle?
I'd like to see him. I wonder what 5 years in prison does to a kid like that.
Yeah. At 5 o'clock that afternoon, it seemed we had run down every possible lead trying to find Joseph Harrison. By that time, the other two witnesses had made up their minds that he was the man they'd seen after all. With the 4 identifications, the case against Harrison became stronger, and our case against Elliot Champion grew weaker. It was imperative that we locate Harrison and prove or disprove that he started the fire. Yeah, Johnny Dollar.
This is Mildred Champion. Remember in my uncle's office?
Yeah, I remember.
Mr. Dollar, you're looking for Joe Harrison, aren't you? I know you are. You don't have to answer me. And I think I can help you find him, but he's not the one you're looking for. I live at 1038 Murata Drive. I'll be home in another hour. We can talk there.
At 5:30, I received another call. This one from Champion's lawyer. He advised me that Champion would bring suit if the claim was not honored immediately. Could have been a bluff, or he could have meant business. We never found out. I had a third call at 5:38.
Johnny, this is I.
Hi, how's it going?
Champion's dead.
What?
I'm on my way out of the house now. Somebody shot him 10 minutes ago.
return to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Now, with our star, John Lund, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Apparently, Elliot Champion had died as swiftly as he had lived. A .38 slug had entered the very center of his forehead. There was no weapon lying about. There were no witnesses in the remote hilly section of Glendale where he lived to give any information concerning the crime. The police were more anxious than ever to find Joseph Harrison. Their reasoning was that if he'd burned down a $250,000 building to get back at Elliot Champion, he also might shoot him. The arson case had turned into a murder case. When Don Vickers joined Ives and me at the scene, things were still pretty much up in the air.
Well, now, this is a new wrinkle. What do you suppose...
We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I thought I was getting somewhere.
You find something?
I don't know. Take a look at this.
Huh?
Here. Mildred Champion married Harrison a month before he was convicted.
Well, I'll be...
Me, too.
Were they separated?
Only by the prison term. No record of any divorce or annulment proceedings. Well, what do you make of it, Johnny?
I don't know what to make of it. She called me earlier and said she had some information for me. I was on my way there when this happened.
You didn't talk to her?
No. She's his only living relative. And now she can't be found. Not at her place, anyhow.
Funny, huh?
It wasn't funny at all. From the 2 times I'd spoken to her and the 1 time I'd seen her, I'd gathered a pretty definite impression of Mildred Champion. But apparently, it had been all wrong.
All right, I'm here. I'll be there.
Why,
Dollar.
Hello, Mr. Engel.
Never thought I'd see you anymore. What's up? Still looking for Joe?
Still looking for Joe.
Yeah, wish I could help you, Dollar.
Elliot Champion was shot and killed in his home tonight.
No.
That's all you have to say?
What else is there to say? Unless I ask, did Joe do it?
Maybe.
Well?
Did you know Mildred Champion?
I met her.
Did you know she was married to Joe Harrison?
Yeah.
I'll throw one more thing at you, Engel. Champion wasn't always too good about paying his income taxes. Our accountants cover everything in a case like this.
What do you want me to say?
I'm here to get all of the story now. I think you're the man who can tell it.
Why?
You can tell me if Harrison was the kind of man who'd start that fire. You can tell me if he really was an embezzler. You can tell me if you think he'd kill Champion.
I can't tell you anything, Dollar. All I have is my opinion.
Well, I'd like your opinion. I really would, Engel. There's something about her being married to Harrison, isn't there?
Yeah? A wife can't testify against her husband. Everyone else in Champion's office testified against him.
I see. Now, the opinion. Come on, Engel.
No, you're right, Dollar. I've got ideas, and all of them make me sick inside. Joe Harrison stood there and told me he was innocent. He said it 1,000,000 times if he said it once. And he told me he thought Champion was framing him.
For the income tax shortages?
Well, that's just surmise, Dollar. He was a green kid who was hired into the company by Champion. He might have been hired to be framed on a phony embezzling charge that'd give Champion a good excuse on his taxes for a while. I've been fooled a lot of times.
Were you fooled with him?
I don't know. I wish I could have gotten him off. I tried, Dollar. Believe me, I tried. You say he's out getting even. He's burned down a building and maybe murdered a man. Joe was a nice boy, Dollar. But now his whole life's gone. And for what? I hope you don't find him. I hope nobody ever finds him.
But we did find Joseph Harrison. He was right under our noses all the time. When I called back at the hotel, there was a message for me to get down to the county hospital. Ives was waiting for me there. We both stood and looked at Joseph Harrison in the morgue.
It's a funny thing, Johnny. There's been an alarm out on this guy for 6 hours. Everybody's been looking everywhere for him, and he turns up right here, only he's dead.
What killed him?
TB. Just got the whole story. He had it awful bad up at San Quentin. Wanted out awful bad. In the sick ward his last 2 years. When his time was up last week, he made him release him. But he wound up here. Died in this hospital. Just a kid, huh?
Yeah. Well, we were right back where we'd started from, trying to make a case against Elliot Champion. Except now it was trying to make a case against the estate of Elliot Champion. I was surprised to learn before leaving the county hospital that his niece had still not been seen to be informed of her uncle's death. I was even more surprised when Don Vickers reported from police headquarters.
Johnny, this case is breaking.
What?
A guy who runs a gas station on San Fernando Road sold a woman a 5-gallon tin of gasoline last Monday.
Mildred Champion?
Well, it sure sounds like her. Tall, rangy, about 30. The car description checks out, too. She could be the one who did the job on the building easy enough.
Yeah. And on her uncle, too.
Again?
Yeah, come on. And close that and lock it.
It's awful late for this.
I know.
Now what?
We found Joe. He's dead.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. And he didn't do any of the things we thought he might have done. I'm here to find out what you might have done.
Oh, I don't get you.
Engel, I don't know how to figure you. I haven't been able to since we met. Well, now, it doesn't make any difference what I think of you. But it makes a difference how you answer this question. A lot of difference to you.
Well, what, Dollar?
Did you help Champion frame Joe Harrison?
No. I told you I defended him. I tried my best to get him off.
That's the truth?
I'm an honest man, if not a successful one. I told you the truth.
Well, if you did, you're not in any trouble. If you didn't, you might get killed.
What?
You might anyhow.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Ask who it is.
Yeah. Who is it?
Mildred Champion, Mr. Engel.
Tell her just a minute.
Just a minute, Miss Champion.
Okay. Get over there. Go on. Get down.
All right.
Call the police.
Hold it up, Mildred. Hold it up!
Are you hurt?
You.
Are you hurt?
No, I'm all right. Did I kill him? Did I kill him?
No, Mildred. You didn't kill him.
Oh, he ought to be dead. My uncle stole money from himself and made it look like Joe did it.
I know about that.
And that one in there, he helped him. Why didn't you let me kill him, too?
He didn't help your uncle. He tried to help Joe.
When I went over to see Joe last month in the prison hospital, I knew he was dying. He had that look in his eye. Helpless. And he knew what my uncle had done to him, and he couldn't do anything about it.
But you figured you could. You killed your uncle when you found out Joe died. You came here to kill Engel.
I thought he helped him do it. I thought he helped kill Joe. They did kill him, you know. When they sent him to prison as surely as if they'd shot him down. 5 years I waited for him to get out of that awful place. I waited to hold him in my arms and tell him it was all over. 5 years I waited to help him forget his hate and my hate. Loving him so much every day.
And now he's dead. What can you or I or anybody do about what they've done to him? Look at me, Mr. Dollar. I'm not what you'd call beautiful. I'm not even pretty. Nobody ever looked at me twice until Joe. He looked at me and he loved me, and now he's dead, and I'm dead inside. I'm dead inside, and I'll be glad when I'm dead outside.
Come on, Mildred. Expense account item 6. Same as item 3. Transportation back to New York. Item 7, same as item 1. Transportation New York to Hartford. Item 8, $85 miscellaneous. Expense account total, $516.54. Comments. Item 8 you can take away if you want to. It's a legitimate miscellaneous that I pampered myself with. I wanted to forget Mildred Champion talking about her lover. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars John Lund in the title role and is written by E. Jack Newman with music by Eddie Dunstetter. Featured in tonight's cast were Eddie Marr, Joe Duvall, Joyce McCluskey, Francis X. Bushman, and Herb Butterfield. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dan Cubberly, inviting you to join us next week at this time when John Lund returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Tomorrow night at the Star's address, look up Danny Clover, detective in New York City's teeming Times Square area. Danny, born and brought up in the shadow of the Great White Way, knows its haunts and its people as few others do. Tomorrow and every Saturday night on most of these same stations, follow Danny Clover on CBS Radio's Broadway is My Beat. It's packed with thrills and human interest.
Is your soldier boy coming home on furlough? You'll be glad to know Traveler's Aid is standing by to help him get home safe and sound. In bus, train, and airplane terminals, Traveler's Aid workers are constantly helping men and women in uniform, mothers with small children, all kinds of people. Traveler's Aid is really hometown insurance for people on the move. If you miss connections, get stranded in a strange town, or misplace directions, you can count on Traveler's Aid to help. Remember, your community chest gift supports Traveler's Aid and 159 other services. So give now to your community chest and give generously. And remember, America now listens to 105 million radio sets and listens most to the CBS radio network.
Welcome back. Well, this episode gives a good idea of what a sympathetic murderer looks like in this particular case. A very strong emotional performance by the actress playing that role at the end. And John Lund turned in a solid performance as well that made it work and allowed the actress turn in her performance very well. Speaking of John Lund, I received an email from Bill regarding the first John Lund episode. I just listened to the Trans-Pacific Matter with John Lund playing Johnny Dollar. I know it's a little early to form an educated opinion. However, at this point, I don't understand the criticism of Lund in that role. I thought his portrayal showed as much depth, range, and emotion as did O'Brien's. I look forward to hearing more episodes with Lund. As always, I appreciate so much your knowledge of old-time radio, your commentary, and the effort you expend in broadcasting your podcast. Well, thanks a lot, Bill. I think the main way in which Lund suffers in comparison at all is not by looking at his performance, say, compared to other detective shows, but compared to Bob Bailey and Edmund O'Brien. With O'Brien's portrayal, there was a certain edge to the character that wasn't there in a lot of the later Johnny Dollar portrayals. Whether that edge is really a good thing or not is kind of a matter for debate. And I think, again, some people will also compare it to the later Bob Bailey performance. So it's less about Lund's actual ability and performance as it is, I think, people's opinion of the actors who both came before him and would follow him. Thanks so much for the comment. Another vote on Podcast Alley. My vote is for the great detectives of old-time radio. Just love Johnny Dollar. All right, well, I also want to take a moment to thank Mary for her very nice donation. Thanks so much, Mary, and I will be sending along access to our premium site, which we sent along with all tips of $7 or more. Also, continue to evaluate radio series I'm not quite familiar with. I listened to It's a Crime, Mr. Collins, and it's very similar to the Abbotts. Not quite as good in my opinion, but I really love the Abbotts. But I have added It's a Crime, Mr. Collins to our list of shows that we eventually want to end up doing. But that will do it for now. We'll be back tomorrow with our Norman Corwin special. Next Friday, we'll be here with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, with our Norman Corwin special. Mr. Corwin passed away on October 18th, and he was one of radio's great writers, and we're going to honor him with an episode of his Columbia Workshop. This episode is brought to you by the financial support of our great listeners. Thank you so much. Norman Corwin was born in 1910 and died at the age of 101. And he had a phenomenal career in radio, particularly through the World War II era. He was director and producer for many radio dramas. He covered a wide variety of styles, but did a lot of experimental fiction in his work, in particular with the Columbia Workshop. His work ranging from poignant to satirical. One of his greatest works was the rhyming comedy, The Plot to Overthrow Christmas. Well, Corwin had gotten pretty well established, and in 1941, the Columbia Workshop decided to give Corwin 26 weeks of programming. The series was called 26 by Corwin, and began in May of 1941. The episode we're about to hear came from October 12th of 1941 and was week 23 of the series. This particular episode of Studio One starred Ruth Gordon, who would in later years become a Oscar winner, a Golden Globe winner, and an Emmy Award winner. But that was all to happen in the 60s and 70s. At this point, the 45, almost 46-year-old actress was probably best known for playing the role of Mary Todd Lincoln in Abe Lincoln in Illinois. Also featured in today's episode of note is Frank Lovejoy, better known to fans of old-time radio mysteries as Randy Stone in Nightbeat and we've heard him in a couple other series, including Box 13 already. This story is set against the backdrop of the 1941 World Series, which concluded only 6 days prior to airing this episode. The series was played between the New York Yankees and the Brooklyn Dodgers. The Dodgers had last been to the series in 1920, and so after a 21-year absence, they returned. They lost to the Yankees in 5 games. The most crucial game, perhaps, was Game 4 of the series. The Dodgers led by 1 in the top of the 9th at Ebbets Field, and Tommy Henrich of the Yankees struck out, which should have ended the game. But the catcher for the Dodgers, Mickey Owen, couldn't hold on to the ball. It got away from him, and Henrich was able to run down to first base. And then the Yankees rallied to go on to win the game, and the next day they won the series. So Dodger fans were not too happy, and that does end up playing into our plot. But now let us go ahead and take a listen. This is going to be experimental, a little bit unusual. I hope you enjoy it. From 26 by the legendary Norman Corwin, it's Murder in Studio One.
Now, just calm down. Just take it easy. You act though something terrible has happened.
It is terrible. This is awful. This is the worst thing that ever happened in radio.
Well, don't get excited about it. It's a mere trifle. Where's the body?
Right over here. Oh, poor Van Crimps.
How long's he been dead?
I don't know. Only yesterday.
What's that paper he's got in his hand?
It looks like a piece of script to me.
Well, let me read it. Columbia Workshop presents... What's a Columbia Workshop?
Oh, bunch of fellas.
Columbia Workshop presents program number 2326 by Corwin. Who's Corwin?
Oh, he's a guy.
Let's see. Presents a new mystery melodrama entitled Murder in Studio One, written and directed by Norman Corwin, starring distinguished actress, stage, radio, and screen, Ruth Gordon, the role of Cameo Clop. Imagine Ruth Gordon as Cameo Clop.
Who's Cameo Clop?
That's me, idiot. Haven't you ever heard of Inspector Cameo Clop?
Well, no, you see, I'm just a maintenance man in the studio building.
Maintenance man or no maintenance man. Don't you realize I'm the expert who solved the Purple Opal murder? And the Mimsy Bargrove mystery, and the strange case, the green fedora, and the incident of the checkered pajamas?
Well, no, ma'am,
Well, I am, and to be perfectly frank, I shouldn't be fooling around with a small potato of a case like this.
Well, I should say hot potato, ma'am, considering who Van Crimps was. Oh, poor Van Crimps.
Who was Van Crimps?
The most popular radio announcer in the country.
He was? I'll make a note of that. For heaven's sakes, why isn't my secretary here to take notes? Where is everybody? Why am I always first on the scene of the crime, even before the coroner? Hereafter, I'm going to take more time. It's undignified for a detective famous as I to show up for anybody else. That's not the way they do it in the movies.
No, I agree as how it isn't, but poor Van Crimps, he was...
All I really want is to be left alone to finish my research on the lepidopterology of ancient Persia and play the horses. But no. Every fortnight or two, somebody turns up with a new mystery for me to unravel. It's ridiculous. I solved enough mysteries to start a radio series called Ellery Clop. Yeah, and cases that Philo, Crothers, Diblo, Shapiro, Fucon, Moto, got to baffle by... They were dizzier than moths in a lighthouse before I got through with them. It's a good thing I just...
Hey, boss, I've been looking all over for you. Big murder case just broke.
Yeah, it's about time you showed up. This Mr. Slope works around here. This is Minnie, my secretary, never works around anywhere.
Slope.
Well, that's a big murder case you say just broke.
Guy named Van Crimp was found murdered in a radio station. They've been calling you on the phone ever since.
You wouldn't mean the murder in Studio One, would you?
Yeah, that's it. How'd you know?
What studio do you suppose this is?
Is this Studio One? The joke's on me. That's a hot one. Where's the fifth?
On the dead side of the studio, right here.
That side? That just screams. Why do they call it the dead side?
Because sound is dead on that side, of course.
Make a note of that, Minnie.
Hokey doke. That ain't all that's dead on that side, huh? What a guess. I'll have to give that to Winchell.
Well, here's the body, ma'am. We were such a nice fellow then, weren't we?
Well. So I rush up here to tell you there's a murder in this studio.
The joke's on me. That's a laugh, all right.
Minnie, stop enjoying yourself long enough to find out what's delaying Lieutenant O'Hanrahan and the coroner. Ring up headquarters and ask when the... Nah, never mind. Here they are now.
Well, there's Cameo now. Must have arrived here before we did.
The elementary deduction, my dear Lieutenant O'Hanrahan.
Miss Klopp, this is Dr. Lionel Bumbridge, the coroner.
How do you do?
Miss Minerva Hammersmith, Miss Klopp's secretary.
How do you do? Doc?
And this is Gu Chong, everybody. He's the specialist who solved the Congressional Investigation Committee murder and the incident of the unmitigated bore.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Lieutenant, why did you call me on this case if you got Mr. Gu Chow? Are you auditioning, detective?
Oh, I know Gu Chow's on the case as a consultant. Ain't that right, Gu?
I am. He who keeps the moon from wolves is ready to catch luck if ever the heavens do fall. Shall I make a note of that, Samuel?
Nah, don't bother. Lieutenant, I'm resigning from the Van Crimp case effective immediately.
He who resigns from case before investigation puts plow before oxen and claws where it does not itch. What kind of double talk you call that?
Ah, that's strictly from Chinese hunger.
Oh, please don't leave the case, Cameo. You don't want crime to triumph, do you?
Crime don't pay.
Poor Van Crimp. Only last Monday he was
All right, I'll stick, but it's against my principles.
Good, that's the stuff, Cameo. That's the spirit.
Yeah, well, let's get down to business. What's that paper sticking out of Van Crimp's side pocket?
It's got typing on it.
Looks like a commercial announcement.
Well, let me see it, please. Don't forget to remember to insist on the name Fudgy Cream for a real, honest-to-goodness, creamy, delicious, wholesome, tempting, tangy, healthful, different app, mellow, rich, lusciously nourished, and crunchy.
He was supposed to read that tonight at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, well, he's better off this way. Now, Dr. Bumbridge, you've been poking around there long enough. You determined the cause of death?
Oddly enough, the victim was not killed violently. Very strange.
Yeah, it is strange.
The evidence points to strangulation, but there isn't a mark of any kind to indicate the manner of strangulation.
Let me make a note of that.
Okay, doke.
I take it, Doctor. You completed your examination?
Except for an autopsy.
You're then through for the present?
Yes, ma'am.
But you haven't used your stethoscope to examine the corpse, Dr. Bumbridge. Why is that?
Surely, Miss Klopp, you're joking.
Make a note of that, Minnie. I am not joking, Doctor.
But you know that the coroner never examines stethoscopically. When I arrive, it is not to examine a patient, but a corpse.
Don't hand me platitudes at a time like this, sir. Once again, may I suggest you use your stethoscope?
This is preposterous.
Specifically in the area of the duodenum.
Absolute nonsense. The man is dead.
Why don't you do as you told, you jerk?
Just leave this to me, Minnie. I'll take care of the smart repartee. You stick to your shorthand.
Okay, doke. Just trying to help.
And besides, it's jerk, not joik.
Very well. If it will humor you any, Miss Klopp, I will listen to his pulse and respiration, which ceased at least 2 hours ago.
I only yesterday, Van Crimp told me he was going to do the commercial for Miracle Beer. He says to me, let me tell you...
Well, Dr. Bumbridge, what do you hear?
Nothing.
Nothing?
No, nothing.
Yeah, well, then why are you so pale?
I am not well, I guess.
Yeah, give me that stethoscope. I'll listen myself. Just as I thought. Lieutenant, listen to this.
No. I can't believe it.
Well, what is it? Don't keep us on tenterhooks.
Why, it's a quartet. They're singing music.
What kind of music?
The Boogly Woogly Piggy.
Are they swinging it?
Would the Honorable Mr. Chong care to listen?
Thank you so much. City! He who hear music out of wood should lock barn door after barn is stolen.
Are you kidding? Perhaps the estimable Mr. Chong can offer a theory at this point.
Gu Chong jumped to no hasty conclusion. He who jump before he leap beat bush without catching birds. Give over, Gu. Let me listen.
Have you an explanation for this, Cameo?
Simple.
No, they're singing Ida. Ida, sweet as apple.
Come away from them minutes. Now, it's obvious Van Crimp was murdered by the administration of a dose of the deadly poison Insidium.
But how can you tell without an autopsy?
Well, come into that, Dr. Bumbridge, and when I get there, you'll do well to have an explanation for your strange reporter not hearing anything.
But I...
Yes, now Insidium is a newly discovered poison, the effect of which is to choke off the oxygen supply of the blood while at the same time producing a mood of profound cynicism in the victim.
Cynicism?
Yeah, you please observe Van Crimp died with a sneer in his face.
Why, so he did.
But how does that explain the music coming from the duodenum?
Simple. Insidium is a radioactive substance. It gathers in the duodenum and sets up a sort of receiving station for radio waves and other electrical impulses. Acts like a crystal set, you might say.
She knows her stuff, don't she, boys?
Miss Klopp, this poison you speak of is unknown to medical science. Now, how do you...
Quite so, Doctor, because there are only 8 persons in this country who studied it, and I am one of them. I just finished writing a monograph on the subject.
Cameo, I gotta hand it to you. You've solved the mystery.
Yeah, now all we have to do is find a murderer.
Yeah, you certainly... What's that?
In the meantime, Lieutenant, I suggest you place Dr. Bumbridge under arrest for suspicious conduct.
Now, wait a minute.
Poor Van Crimp.
And also detain Mr. Slope, who's been mourning poor Van Crimp just a little too hard to suit me.
Me too.
But I'm only the studio maintenance man. I was...
Also, any others who profess to have known Van Crimp intimately.
Hello, everybody. Am I in the right studio? Is this Studio 1?
Yeah, what do you want here?
Why, I have an appointment to see Van Crimp, the announcer, and by golly, I see I'm just on time, too.
What's your name?
You mean to say you don't know me? My name is Owen Repel, Thompson tenor, singing nightly at Earl's Place, Route 22, where frolics begin. No cover, no men. And I've got a lot of very flashy dramatic routines. Young Soper will go anywhere.
Yeah, well, where do you think you're going now?
Well, that's a good question. If you ask me, I'm going places. But probably what you mean is getting down to seriousness. Where am I going now?
Right out on your ear.
As a matter of fact, Van Crimp is a great big booster of mine, and really a happy-doodle-dandy kind of a chap.
That's what he said.
He came out to Earl's Place to get some soft-shell crabs that they feature along next to my singing, and he told me not to fail when I was in town next time to drop in on him. So here I am.
You're a good friend of Van Crimp's, are you?
Am I a good friend of his? Why, say, I'd give him the shirt right off my back. Why, he's way up there with the best of them. He's right at the top. He's what I call a crackerjack boy. Why, there's nobody like him.
You mean, he's out of this world?
Right. Right as rain.
Do you, recognize who this is laying on the floor?
Why, absolutely, absolutely. Good old Van Crimp. Tough break. By the way, speaking of breaks, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you folks here in the studio a real break. One of the best breaks you've ever had. I see that you folks need a little cheering up, and I'm the guy to do it. Always glad to be of service to my fellow man with a smile. I tell you, folks, a smile is a great thing to remember. Do you remember that old song? A smile will take you well on the bar.
All right, do your smiling outside. Come on, let's
now, wait
get
a minute,
warm.
folks. You're making a big mistake. Madam, you've probably got one good ear.
Yeah, and you're a pain in it. Gone home now.
I can tell you have a dandy ear. Now, get the boy and girl angle of his phone. All right, here we go. And glad to do it, too. It was at the...
All right, come on, Bing, outside. And all my ears are the boys. I've never heard such thing.
What? All right. Now we're rid of him, I suggest we all go about our business. There are a number of people I want to see.
Noted.
In the meantime, I suggest Van Crimp be given a decent autopsy and burial so he'll stop receiving Boogly Woogly Piggy and Ida and other programs on the same wavelength. Ida, sweet as apple cider, sweeter than oregano. Silvery moonlight. Ida, I love you. Ida, sweet I do.
Well, boss, here's the evidence you wanted.
I see. Now, there were 3 different programs, either rehearsing or broadcasting, while Van Crimp was in Studio 1 on the afternoon of the 7th.
The Science Talk by Professor Worthington Trummock.
Adventures of Zazza the Zealous.
And the Rowdy Dowdy Rhythm Girl.
And each must be investigated. In addition, I must see the sponsor of Van Crimp's Snap and Zip variety show, Mr. Plimsoll. I understand he quarreled with Van Crimp the day before he was murdered.
Sure, Plimsoll. His wife died of ptomaine poisoning last year.
Very curious. Put that down, too. Now, first we must see Professor Trummock.
But I tell you, Miss Klopp, I only met the man once.
And that was at a poker game?
Why, yes, to be sure. It was a poker game at his home in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, that's where I live. The land of the free and the home of the Dodgers. When you see our boys next year?
You lost heavily to Van Crimp that night?
Yes, that's true.
And you promised to pay up before November 1st?
Yes.
You also lost a telephone bet in the World Series to him?
Yes.
Now, Professor Frummett, you are a scientist, and you lecture on the radio.
Yes.
You also happen to be one of the 8 persons in this country who knows the secret of Insidium.
Oh, yes, but I assure you...
Professor, will be all for the present. So what? Well, Miss Fothergill, your stories are very imaginative in a macabre sort of a way, aren't they? Yes. Van Crimp once told you publicly that he thought your stories stank. So what? And you replied he'd feel sorry one day for what he said. You also called him an overbearing snob and a stuffed shirt and an exhibitionist who ought to be put out of circulation. He was. So what? You accused him of standing around waiting for people to ask for his autograph. He'd rather sign his autograph than eat. That's what I'm asking you. He's on. That's what I intend to do.
Listen here, Klopp. I'll sue you for disturbing my peace of mind. I'm a busy woman. I'll sue you, too, you little squirt sitting there taking notes of everything I say. You hear me?
Yeah. So what?
I was Van Crimp's girl.
And you sing on the Rowdy Dowdy Rhythm Girls program at Sing Here?
Yes, I do.
You saw him in the studio the day of...
No, I didn't. I didn't see him. I tell you, I didn't.
She says she didn't. But you saw him the night before.
Yes. We had a party. I was at his home. He was very happy about winning a bet that day. Later, he and I went down to Kelly's Tavern for a drink. He was very boisterous, and I quarreled with him.
You quarreled?
No, it wasn't what you suspect. It was only...
Was he sober?
Yes, he never drank.
That's so for now. Just a... What about that, Mr. Plimsoll?
No, I'm surprised that you should ask such a question, Miss Klopp. I have always enjoyed the most cordial relations with my employees and all those members of my wonderful little family who represent Society Selected Snaps and Zips Manufacturing Company on the air. And that includes good old Van Crimp, too. May he rest in peace, poor lad.
But you had sharp words with him.
I am always surprising my employees with little surprises. Now you take this here. The folks are expecting a bonus this year, but I have got something up my sleeve far better than a bonus. And when they get in step with this thing, they are going to be prepped up good and plenty over. It's what we call the friendly Christmas plan. It's very simple. All an employee has to do is shave his slips that he is issued. That is, of course, providing that he has been with the firm for a minimum of 19 years. And if the slips are okay by the foreman and the division superintendent, they are then put through the verifier and checked by any competent notary public. Then they are issued to the board, and the employee simply awaits his turn. This is a matter of, I would say about 10 days or so.
Go on. This is positively spine-chilling.
Yes, I'm glad you approve of it. And then he receives his application blank. Oh, by the way, there's just one thing to remember here, Mr. You might make a mental note of it. It's a very important detail. That is, they must be sure to sign their name on both sides. Have you got that? And then it's simply a matter of a thorough medical examination, and if the employee passes, he's entitled to A, choice of a half a day off, or B, 1.5% discount on articles purchased at the factory commissary. It may seem a little radical to the more conservative businessmen, but I have found that it always pays to search for methods of establishing warmer relationship between myself and my employees.
There are worse crimes than murder.
Everybody hear me? All the suspects is inside, including Lieutenant O'Hanrahan and the district attorney, if you want to call them suspects.
Stranger things have happened.
You also got Mr. Elwin Rappel. What a smack. He's like a cartoon in the New Yorker. He's like a rare etching by Dumier.
Very well. Never mind the cultural allusions. Let's go in and clear up this mystery.
Okay, boss. This is right.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry to upset your plans for the evening, but there's a little matter of a murder to clear up, and then you can all go home. All but one, because the murderer is in this room.
Stop trembling, Mr. Plimsoll. You make the rest of the guests nervous.
Why, I'm afraid I've swallowed my cigar, that's all.
Oh, that's okay. They say ashes is good for the teeth.
If you don't mind, Miss Hammersmith, I'll conduct this investigation.
Okay, so just trying to help.
If I can be of any help, I'd be mighty glad to do it, too. Glad to do it. Now, for instance, I have another song that has the idea...
No. You just sit quiet and continue to pick your teeth. Now, you, Mr. Sloat. You looked upon Van Crimp almost as a son, didn't you?
I loved the boy. Whenever he was in trouble,
You know he had a habit of touching the point of his pencil to his tongue when writing?
Yes, I often urged him to correct that habit. I told him it was unhygienic.
It certainly was. It may or may not come as a surprise to you to learn that Van Crimp died as a result of touching to his tongue a pencil whose point has been dipped in insidium.
Why,
Yes? Oh. Well, now, maybe you're right. Now, Miss Pink.
No, I tell you, I didn't have anything to do with it.
All right, take it easy, Cookie. All she said was, now, Miss Pinckney.
Before Van Crimp went upstairs to Studio One, he was seen signing an autograph for a lot of girls in the lobby of the station.
Yes.
And you were looking on very jealously.
I was furious with him. He was flirting with a girl.
He sure was, a mile a minute.
And you, Miss Pinckney, already angry with him because of his behavior at Kelly's Tavern in Brooklyn the night before, you turned on your heel and stomped out.
She turned on her heel, all right.
No editorial comments, please. Is that true, what I just said, Miss Pinckney?
Yes.
Very well. Now, I am ready to reveal the murderer. Take notes on everything I say, Minnie.
Okey-doke.
The identity of the murderer of Cornelius Van Crimp is Minerva Hammersmith.
Are you kidding?
Minnie, a little while ago when I remarked to Miss Pinckney that Van Crimp was flirting with autograph seekers on the day of his death, you remarked that he was.
Her kind of phrase, so what?
So, what were you doing there?
Observing how the other half lives.
Yeah, I thought so. It was to you I dictated my monograph on insidium. Therefore, you knew the properties of the poison.
Strictly your property as far as I'm concerned.
And you let slip the opinion that Van Crimp was a heel.
Check.
He lived in Brooklyn where you lived all your life, and it's known he rooted for the Yankees in the recent World Series, as witness his argument with Rappel and his wager with Trummer.
Go on, you're getting hot.
Van Crimp celebrated on the night of October 6th at Kelly's Tavern. He was delighted because that afternoon the Dodgers had lost to the Yankees when their catcher dropped a third strike on what should have been the last play of the game.
Well, go on. This is strangely fascinating.
Yeah, you were there at the tavern that night.
How do you know that?
Well, it was your only night off in a month.
You're telling me.
Next day, you showed up to work with a new style matchbook from the tavern. You, a loyal Dodger fan, were infuriated because Van Crimp, also a native of Brooklyn, had turned traitor to the team. So next day, you...
This has gone far enough. Yes, I murdered Van Crimp. I picked up Strummock's pencil, which he left in the restaurant, and dipped it in a jigger of Insidium, and then asked Van Crimp for his autograph, and he put it to his tongue, as I seen him do once.
You did?
Yeah, I murdered him. And I'll do it again, too.
You mean if you meet Van Crimp in some other life?
Anytime, anywhere, including the Bronx.
Minnie, why did you do this terrible thing?
Well, boss, I don't mind a Brooklyn citizen rooting for the Yankees. That's bad enough. But I says live and let live. That's my motto.
Yeah, with one notable exception.
But insults is another thing. You want to know what Van Crimp said that night at the tavern? He says, them Dodgers are bush leaguers with illusions of grandeur. Yes, he did. And he says, may they go back to the second division where they belong and never reared their ugly heads again. And then he says, and get this, may all their children drop side strikes.
Min, if you'd only told me.
Well, boss, that's when my gorge begins to rise. He says this also. He says the only way to explain the Dodgers winning the pennant this year is sunspots. Oh, sunspots. And him, a resident of Brooklyn. And then he says, if it's another 21 years before Brooklyn finishes in the first division, which it will be at least, that'll be too soon for me, he says. Curse them bums, he says. They never was no good, and they never will be. You wouldn't believe it, but that's what he says.
Oh, the man was a monster.
Well, boss, I knew then that Van Crimp was a traitor to his country and to mankind. I knew then he'd have to go. It was a far, far better thing I'd done for Brooklyn.
Minnie. Oh, Minnie, I understand and I sympathize. Believe me, it is with reluctance and a heavy heart I turn you over to the district attorney and the grand jury, but I saw me duty and I've done it.
Okay, boss, I understand. No hard feelings. I guess nobody can ever pull the perfect crime, but I come near it.
Yeah, and I feel certain that no jury in the world will convict you, except possibly in St. Louis, which fortunately has no jurisdiction in this case. Officer Hanrahan, the prisoner is yours.
I am honored to take so distinguished a prisoner into my custody.
Thanks, Flatfoot. Well, things is going to be different next year. You wait and see.
Yeah, Minnie. Yeah. Things is going to be different next year.
have been listening to the Columbia Workshop's presentation of Murder in Studio One, written and directed by Norman Corwin as program number 23 in the cycle 26 by Corwin, and starring Ruth Gordon, distinguished actress of radio, stage, and screen, in the role of Cameo Clock. The role of Minerva Hammersmith, the Brooklyn Patriot, was played by Minerva Pius. And the characters of Elwyn Rappel and Mr. Plimsoll were created and performed by Edward Mayhoff. Others in the cast were Alan Drake as Slope, Kenneth Delmar as Dr. Bumbridge, Frank Lovejoy as Lieutenant O'Hanrahan, Peter Gu Chong as Gu Chong, Esther Sundergaard as Fothergill, Ann Shepard as Miss Pinckney, and Norman Ober as Professor Thrummer. Music was arranged and conducted by Alexander Semler, and the vocalists were the Symphonettes and the Four Clubmen. MacDonald Nyan engineered. Columbia Workshop will return next week this same time with program number 24 of 26 by Corwin. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Those Dodger fans are quite tough. And of course, it would be another 14 years of wait till next year until the Dodgers at last won a World Series. So by then, with good behavior, if Minnie had been convicted, she would have been out on parole. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the 26 by Corwin. I think it's about the only thing that'll fit into our particular series. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be back on Monday, returning to our regular order. Join us for Barrie Craig Confidential Investigator. In the meanwhile, if you have a comment, email it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Give us a call, 208-991-4783. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.